What's up, everybody? Hope everyone is having a wonderful evening so far. I got a very special guest all the way from Tallahassee, Florida, Logan Robinson, the founder of Noles Gameday. Logan, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come on the show, man. It's Miami, Florida State, one of the biggest rivalries in college football, man. Has it hit you yet? Because it took me a couple days to really really take in that we're playing Florida State Saturday night on prime time.
Yeah, no, I think it's usually like the Thursdays it will hit me. I think it had to hit me when we were facing Georgia Tech. And now that it's actually rivalry week, it didn't hit me until this morning. And I woke up and we have about 3 shows lined up. And now I get to come back on here with you and preview an actual rivalry game. We actually get to watch some football on Saturday night on prime time. Now it finally has hit me that, I don't like those colors that you're wearing and you have there, and you don't like what I've probably got and the garnet that I've got over here. So it's definitely rivalry week. It's all for fun. But it's not really that fun whenever the guys get on the field. It goes to battle. Right. It's not so sweet, and it shouldn't be. This is one of the best rivalries in college football. It should be a battle, should be nasty, and that's just how this rivalry has always been. So I'm excited for it. It's actually my favorite rivalry over Florida. So this is my kind of week. Oh yeah, I love. I think it's just so much better rivalry. We'll get into it, but definitely appreciate you having me back on here for a second time, man.
Yeah, definitely, Logan. And regardless of the team that someone else roots for, I mean, you got to respect the hustle, man. You started Noles Gameday from scratch, and you've built up a great reputation, man. And I respect the hell out of it. So it really is an honor to have you on, man. Logan, let's get right into it. What's kind of the outlook for Florida State going into this game? It was a devastating loss against Georgia Tech that was predicted to finish last in the ACC. It's a rebuilding program under Jeff Collins. Mike Norvell will not be there. It seems like all the odds are against Florida State in this game. So, I mean, what's kind of the outlook Florida State for going into this game?
I think the main thing is keeping organization. We saw a sense of it against Georgia Tech, that things were getting a little bit more organized on the sideline and just kind of being more disciplined. And that's going to have to be a big case against Miami because it's going to get chippy no matter what. Like we were just saying when we started, it's a battle. It's a fun battle. Guys going to be talking trash. Most of these guys grew up together playing high school football. And so it's going to get chippy, but keeping your discipline and not causing, penalties to hurt your team is something that Florida State has struggled in for a long time. Not only just under Willie Taggart, but Jimbo Fisher's last year. It's been a bad trend. So you got to hope that Florida State definitely would not have Mike Norvell there. They've got to find a way to stay disciplined, stay organized, so then they can have a good chance in staying this game and battling a good opponent. And it's going to be a big. It's going to be a different change than what Florida State had facing Georgia Tech. It's just how it is. It's a rivalry. Your adrenaline hits a little bit differently whenever you're facing a team that's wearing orange, no matter what. And it's the same way for Miami. They hate Florida State, and you got to hope that this team will stay directed and tunnel vision on the goal and the end of it all, and it's just to beat your guy up front. And Florida State has had a rough time with that, and it's rough. It's rough. It's been a rough time. So you got to hope that Mike Norvell and him not being there, and they can still find some organization under Chris Thomas and the interim coach for this game on Saturday night.
Speaking of Mike Norvell, how happy are you so far as Mike Norvell being named your head coach and, the direction he's taken the program? Because I know DJ Matthews, who, he was a very good playmaker for Florida State, did transfer. Jamarcus Chapman as well. There was another offensive lineman, but a Florida State fan did tell me he was one of the worst offensive linemen in Power 5 football. What's kind of the guidance under Mike Norvell and the direction of Florida State football?
I think you are indeed. I mean, everybody on social media is saying that you're cutting off some fat, and that is probably true. You got still some. He had a Jimbo guy, and everybody, Jimbo guys are like a Dontavius Jackson, and you place DJ Matthews in there, even like Kalen LeBourne, but they just really weren't good for the team, you could say. In the locker room, maybe what they were doing off the field. And what they were bringing to the table. Obviously, with Jay Williams also transferring, that's a Willie Taggart guy, but he's not your most talented guy, I should say, and he's not someone that was expected to play this season. So you're some guys are going to be moving on. And obviously it is a different year too with COVID-19 going on, a pandemic, and things are all situated and whatnot. But Florida State, and Mike Norvell have, been straight up with guys and had meetings. I mean, it was with Jeff Sims, who's now starting quarterback for Georgia Tech.
Yep.
He sat down with Jeff Sims and, told him, you're probably not going to fit in this offense. I will do my best to put you in touch and talk with coaches. Yeah. And, that's how losing Jeff Sims and him moving on to Georgia Tech ended up being, he will tell you kind of straight up, which is good. I think it's a difference in Tallahassee, from Willie Taggart, where it's kind of just a little bit too nice and, he'll let guys stay, at least Mike Norvell will tell you. And hopefully that builds respect. But, getting some of these guys, letting these guys go off the team and is not really too much of a shock, I would say. And, they're not brutal hits. And it's just kind of a part of a transition of a new coaching staff too. And it's going to be a little bit more discipline, and that's just how it has to go in Tallahassee.
No, absolutely. I mean, when there's a new head coach, obviously you weren't recruited by that head coach. So I definitely do expect players to leave the program. I mean, that's very common in any new head coach taking over a program. Logan, Kenny Dillingham, first-year OC, came from Auburn. What kind of offense does he run, and what should Miami Hurricanes fans expect Saturday night?
I think this is a good question, Paul, because this has been my main topic on going on shows. And when we just got done recording our podcast, it's like, what this is Kenny Dillingham's pretty much his first true game, definitely at a program like Florida State, where he's going to have to call this game by himself there. I mean, of course, he's going to have assistants around him, but Mike Norvell is not going to be there. He's not going to be able to be there texting him, at least from what we know of, but he's not going to be able to be there on this, a webcam on the sideline and looking and blah, 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 and texting what to do. So I think, Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham have set up a game plan. They want to run the ball. They want to find a way to where James Blackman doesn't have to be throwing the ball as much. Obviously, after 2 Saturdays ago, James Blackman couldn't find anything. So they're gonna have a running game plan, and I do think they're gonna utilize the tight end quite a bit. I think you'll see Cam McDonald be out there and try to make mismatches and create some kind of momentum against Miami's linebackers, because Louisville was still able to get some yards on Miami Saturday night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's something that, Florida State has got to look at that and figure out a good game plan. And that's something Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham have said in their interviews the last week and a half, is that they're really working on a game plan that is able to put their playmakers in place and try to get after what may be, some of the weak links on Miami's defense. And they do know that they are it's going to be a battle no matter what. But Florida State had protection on offensive line against Georgia Tech until things started falling like flies. 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen were falling left and right. But when Florida State had protection, James Blackman could sit there for a little while. He started to gain happy feet here and there, and that's what caused him to not make his reads. But there is some promising sign that Florida State's offensive line can give Blackman enough protection to have a decent game on Saturday night. It's just, I hope Kenny Dillingham is able to call some plays that gives him a little warm up into that game instead of jumping straight into explosiveness. But we'll see. You also got to hope that, like I said, Kenny Dillingham is going to have a priority of running the ball, but Deshaun Corbin said that he just knocked off rust after not playing a year. So he's still a little raw. And then also LaDamian Webb, he had JUCO time, but he's facing different competition. This is a whole different defense. This is a different defense than Georgia Tech. I don't think it's not a whole 180, but this is going to be a more talented defense that Florida State's facing on Saturday night.
No, absolutely. And, before we jump into kind of the matches with Miami's defense and Florida State's offense, Kenny Dillingham made a quote this week stating that they are going to practice 4 different quarterbacks. From the outside, it seems like a bluff for Miami just to get ready for a Jordan Travis, a James Blackman, a Chubba Purdy, who was cleared to play. Personally, I think James Blackman is going to be the starter. Now, if they switch to Jordan Travis throughout the game, maybe even throw in a Chubba Purdy, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But do you think Florida State will be starting a different quarterback Saturday night besides James Blackman, or he's the go-to guy? Oh, shit.
There we go. I'm good. Sorry. I gotta always remind myself that I'm muting myself. But yeah, I do think James Blackman will be the starter. I'm predicting that. I think a lot of our staff has too. But I do think there is going to be design packages for Jordan Travis, most certainly. Gotcha. I think they're going to try to find a way to separate some guys, definitely, and Miami's defense in the second tier, and try to blow up some things so then Florida State can create a running game. So if you throw a Jordan Travis package in there for a drive, try to dice them up a little bit to kind of create some kind of momentum, because the only reason Jordan Travis was in the game against Georgia Tech, the only reason it was there because Florida State could not find any momentum whatsoever. I mean, that starts with James Blackman, of course. I do think players were put into positions to make plays against Georgia Tech, but they just weren't being made. And Kenny Dillingham was very positive on the way James Blackman actually was playing during that game, and that's obviously coach's talk. I have a feeling it was a whole different story whenever they're watching film the next day, but I'm not going to be shocked whatsoever to see James Blackman go out there. He has the most experience. You don't have your head coach there at all. You're not going to throw in a Tate Rodemaker, a true freshman, and Chubba Purdy has had some practice, but is still limited and still coming back after 2 surgeries. And so on his upper body. So it's going to be a James Blackman show / Jordan Travis, I think, on Saturday night. And that, Florida State fans are just going to have to kind of, cross their fingers and hope that was James Blackman's worst game of the season against Georgia Tech.
So you don't think you would be completely shocked if Chubba Purdy enters the game? I'm dying to see him. I am dying to see Chubba Purdy.
I would be shocked. I would most certainly be shocked. I just got word over the weekend that he was out of his sling. So okay. I don't see much. And it's worth noting too, he wasn't an early enrollee. So he just arrived in August.
Yeah.
And he was not seen practicing for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And you can kind of come up with your own mind on what that means. And then in his first scrimmage, gets hurt, has to have surgery, not a brutal thing. He recovered very well, but he did have an infection that he had to get cleaned up. So it's second surgery up there. And so that he's not just maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks out of just recovering from that second one. And I really don't see it happening where you see Purdy out there. I do think, it's just not a safe measure. Definitely in a game, Florida State, Miami is brutal. And Florida State's offensive line is improving, which is a good thing, but it's not. I don't think it's a game for a true freshman and to get in there and get walloped in your first drive. But I do think he will be seeing Chubba Purdy later on in the season, though.
We got a question from 247 Canes. He wants to ask Noles Gameday what he thinks about this. Blackman was under pressure on 42.6% of his drop backs, which is the highest rate of any Power 5 team by far. Seems like offensive line from the past season has still been an issue at Florida State.
Yeah, no, it has been, and it's a rough situation. I will say, like I was just talking about, there is some improvement signs. The pass protection did look good whenever that 5-person unit was in there. And the only reason I can say 5-person unit is because they were dropping like flies for the rest of the game. But whenever they were in there, they actually looked like they had some kind of rhythm going. They actually looked like a working unit rather than the last 3 years of them looking just conjumbled everywhere like a cluster F. So this time you actually saw them working seamlessly and actually giving Blackman time. Did Blackman kind of rush things and maybe his mental and his reads? Yes, he kind of brought back his happy feet, and that's something that you would hope doesn't happen for a veteran quarterback that's been playing so long. But that might be just because he's so spooked and used to having that offensive line that you can't trust on who's coming up from behind you. And it's just the way it is. And Florida State does have to find an answer at quarterback. But yeah, that offensive line too is just not the greatest, but it is. I think there is improvement, and I think tomorrow Florida State is looking on a positive sign on offensive line recruitment wise with Rod Orr, who is optimistic that Florida State is going to land a pretty talented offensive tackle tomorrow.
Love it. Gotta win those recruiting battles. No doubt about it.
You're
That
right.
will change your program. Recruiting nowadays is, I think everyone can agree in college football. It's really just, it's kind of a funny story. The events that need to occur to land a recruit, it's like it's gotten to a whole nother level modern day, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Coaches are pretty creative nowadays when it comes to recruiting. Logan, from an outside perspective, what were your first thoughts of kind of Miami's new offense last year? We were under Dan Enos. Now we have Rhett Lashley from SMU. Are you, I wouldn't, not in a sense of fan, but are you saying like, hey, like, this is a good offense. This is a very good offense. Or do you still have some question marks?
I do think this is an upgrade for Miami. It's so hard because if you look back, I mean, Miami always starts off pretty promising in the beginning of years, and then you get the middle and then the end. It's like, wait, what happened to the first part of that team at the beginning of the season? And, the rough part for Florida State is that they're going to be facing Miami early on, and that's something that I wish wouldn't be happening. But here we are, and I think Florida State has a lesser chance of beating Miami in the early part of the seasons than later on. But I do think this offense for Miami does have a quarterback that can run the system that they want, and he actually, can make plays that, are actually smarter up there and aren't going to make those mistakes that Miami has had in the past seasons. That a quarterback will make silly mistakes, and that's something we can relate with that here in Tallahassee. Florida State having that same thing, and it really hurts your offense. You lose momentum, and that's when you definitely want to get points on the board. You got to have a quarterback that's able to drive down the field and keep your defense off the field and get rest. And, I think Derek King is a much, much more experienced quarterback than what Miami is used to. Right. And I think that's going to play a factor. And, going to this game, significantly, Florida State has struggled against quarterbacks that can run and get out of the pocket. And, Florida State's linebacker play has not played assignment football in a very long time. And, that's going to be a tough game for Florida State's defense. And we're going to find out really early on in the first quarter if Florida State's defense is ready to contain and keep King down and keep their offensive coordinator struggling and make him throw the ball.
It's very nice to hear Miami has finally an answer at quarterback. Florida State has had E.J. Manuel, Christian Ponder, Jameis Winston, Everett Golson. I mean, they just keep coming left and right. Miami, we've been begging for an answer at the quarterback position. Brad Kaya couldn't run for his life. He was a sitting duck in the pocket. So it's nice that we actually have a dual threat quarterback who, he's considered one of the best in the nation, by the so-called experts. But what mismatches do you see in this game that favor Florida State, Logan? I can specifically point out the wide receiver core to Marion Terry. Very good player at Florida State. 60 receptions, over 1,000 receiving yards, second team all ACC. He's going to go up against a very, very thin depth chart at Miami. We only have 5 corners right now on our depth chart. So what are your thoughts on kind of the mismatches? Maybe your wide receiver core is the strength of your offense, which I believe so.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's what I was going to bring up, because if Florida State, and I said it on our podcast earlier, if Florida State offensively wants to do some things and put points on the board, it's got to be the James Blackman and Tamarion Terry connection. I need Tamarion Terry. I think Florida State fans will all agree. Terry, is expected to be a first-round talent. He is, I believe, but he's got to show it on the field. He wasn't there for that game against Georgia Tech, and I understand he did have some mental stuff he was going with losing his grandma early that morning, and that hits differently for a player. But looking now, you're 2 weeks in to the season, now 3 weeks. This will be 3 weeks for Florida State. Tamarion Terry's got to be able to take advantage of Miami's defensive back unit as a whole. I mean, even Keyshawn Helton on the other side, if it's going to be Warren Thompson, Jordan Young, Portier, you got to have wide receivers that take advantage of your mismatches. And Tamarion Terry and James Blackman have got to get back on connect. I mean, Tamarion Terry did have a ball that was perfect for him, but dropped it. That was 6 points last 2 Saturdays ago. and that hurt, and it kills your momentum on offense. And Florida State, could have won that game if he would have caught it. It's crazy to think, that game shouldn't have been close. There's so many bad executions by Florida State, both offensively and defensively. But the main thing, Tamarion Terry's got to be there on Saturday night. Take advantage. If he's one-on-one, take the shot. You've got to take whatever that defense gives you. And if he's giving you one-on-one, you've got to be able to believe in your future first round, second round talent with Tamarion Terry, because he's got the speed, he's got the hands. We just didn't get to see it against Georgia Tech, and I think this is going to have to be. I think the season resets for Florida State. Hopefully, you got to think optimistically on Saturday, definitely offensively.
Logan, Miami's defensive line unit, their defensive ends. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're very good. Jalen Phillips was ranked like literally after Chase. Was it Chase Young? His name is the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
top 5 overall pick with the Redskins.
Yeah, number 2, I believe. Yeah, Redskins. Yeah. Big cat.
He was actually rated either before or after Chase Young. Quincy Roche, AAC Defensive Player of the Year with 13 total sacks. At the other end, at defensive end, defensive tackle, we have Nesta Silvera. We're pretty loaded at defensive line. How do you view that matchup with Florida State's offensive line, and what do you think Florida State needs to do to succeed to vacate a lot of sacks?
It's going to be I'm going to have to do what you're doing on Saturday night, is drinking whatever beer that is. I mean, I've got my whole Natty Ice Wall over here, but I'm going to – that's what I'll be doing on Saturday night, watching that offensive line. But like I said, there's optimism there. Devontae Love-Taylor, who is a transfer from FIU. I didn't even bring this up in the podcast, but I should have. But Devontae Love-Taylor manhandled and took a good care of Miami's defensive line last year. And you got to hope that he's back, because he was down against Georgia Tech, and there's some optimism that he'll be good to go to start against Miami. So you get him back, a guy that's had experience against Miami, but you've got 4 other guys that are going to have to do their jobs. You're going to have to. And even if you have to bring in a guy like Wyatt Rector, who just recently got on scholarship, to be able to block. You've also got Cam McDonald, but I think he's more of your playmaking tight end. But you got to find a rhythm. If it's quick throws for Blackman, if you take those shots downfield, make sure you're giving them enough protection like we saw against Georgia Tech. But that offensive line has got to be able to hold a unit that Miami's defense, coming into the season, expected to be one of the best defensive lines in the country. Right. Florida State and Miami have some of the best defensive lines right now in college football. And that's going into recruiting too. That's something you got to get used to. Miami usually is able to recruit on the offensive line side of things. And not only for this game on Saturday, but for future ahead, being able to recruit and be able to compete is on the offensive line for Florida State is something that has got to be one of the top things that the staff is looking at. And on Saturday night, they're going to have to find extra protection, I think. And, you're probably going to see two back sets, and one of them most certainly, if not 2, or might be blocking for those short shots and those deep throws for Blackman on Saturday night. So you got to find a rhythm early on, just first quarter rhythm, and the guys staying healthy, staying up is going to be the key for that offensive line to face Miami's defensive line. Any other player that Miami fans should look out for on the offensive side of the football for Florida State that may make a big impact? I know Jashawn Corbin, he's a running back, led the team in receptions against Georgia Tech. I think for me on Saturday night offensively for Florida State, your playmaking guy that Miami fans should know about a name. Everybody hears about Tamarion Terry, obviously Corbin, even LaDamian Webb and Blackman, but I'm going to go Keyshawn Helton. Didn't get to see him a lot last year. He is by far one of the big leaders on this team. He came back from a season-ending injury last year, and he's actually put on some pounds. He's speedy. He caught Florida State's only touchdown against Georgia Tech 2 Saturdays ago, and didn't get to see him for the rest of the game. That's a whole different discussion for a different day, but Keyshawn Helton puts himself where he's open. I saw it multiple times where Blackman missed reads, and that's where you just got to be able to utilize your talent and go and make Blackman just take things and let the defense give him what he's got. I mean, Keyshawn Helton is speedy. He's an explosive player. We got a Tamarion Terry. Florida State's there with number 5 now, but Keyshawn Helton is expected. He's wearing number 6. He's a slot guy. He can run routes good, and he's quick, fast, and he can catch the ball, and he's reliable. So I would keep an eye out for Keyshawn Helton on Saturday night.
Flipping over to the defensive side of the football, defensive line is the strength of Florida State's defense. We all know the infamous Marvin Wilson. I'll be honest with you, Logan. A lot of Miami fans aren't very high on Marvin Wilson because he did nothing against Miami the past year. Kind of tell us. I see it physically. He's a big guy. He is a monster. He looks like an NFL player right now. But I always pondered how he did not have success against an awful Miami line the past season. So what is it, inconsistent play? What's going on with Marvin Wilson? Because he didn't have the best game against Georgia Tech either.
No, he didn't. And that's something we've been rambling on since that game, since we did an instant reaction 2 Saturdays ago. He wasn't there for that game. He wasn't a first-round talent during that game. He wasn't a second-round talent. He wasn't a third-round talent. He might have not even a fourth-round talent. He just wasn't there at the game and what you're expecting him to bring to the table. And like you said, he hasn't had great success really against Miami, and that's kind of shocking because if you look at Miami's offensive line, they've been around there with Miami, and it's just not been great. And Marvin Wilson should be able to manhandle most of the guys that are in front of him. And I don't know where the team was mentally, but Marvin Wilson as a whole really sets that unit up for success against teams. And he wasn't there on Saturday whatsoever. It was a disappointing performance. And I think hopefully in the locker room, but whenever you go to film, more importantly, Odell Hagen's that's just not going to cut it. And he's a guy that has put guys into the league. He's been a very successful coach. He's been an interim head coach, but Odell Hagen is one of the most respected assistant coaches in college football. And I'm sure right after the game, and if not early Sunday morning, they had a nice little meeting and said, you know what, if you're wanting to go to the league and be this guy, you need to look at tape and see what needs to be differently, because that was a pitiful performance for a guy that is expected to be a first, second round guy heading into this upcoming draft. He stayed another year too. And, it sucks that he also doesn't perform too well against a team like Miami and, an offensive line that's not so wonderful. But that whole defensive line as a whole too has got to wake up. Got to have Corey Durden ready to roll. He's got about as much experience as Marvin Wilson too. Robert Cooper, Fabian Lovett, your DNs got to contain. This is the biggest game for Florida State this season, defensive line wise. I know we're only in the second game, but it might be the biggest game just because of the quarterback threat that you're facing. And, the Miami offensive line isn't phenomenal either. And it's just a big time to wake up. You got to be able to hopefully hit that reset button. And, obviously the Georgia Tech game is a complete disappointment, but you got to hit that reset factor and have the mentality to get after it. We had Everett Dawkins on earlier today, and he was a ACC champion in 2012, great defensive tackle at Florida State. And he said, guys are playing too tall. They're standing up too high. They're not getting after it. And they don't also have the mentality just to go and hurt you. And that's something that both, Florida State defensive linemen and also Miami defensive linemen in the recent history and going way back too, those are usually some nasty defensive linemen. Those are some mean mother effers, man. And that's just the team. The team isn't there yet mental wise. So it's got to be wake up call on Saturday for the defensive line.
Logan, what kind of defense are you expecting FSU to play? More zone, man, or press versus Miami?
Well, against Georgia Tech, that zone didn't really work out too well. I will say that. And Adam Fuller got some heat on that, and that was tough. It was tough watching it because you got talented corners in Tallahassee. You're always going to bring in 4-star, 5-star defensive backs. Why are you putting them in zone? Why are you doing that? What's going on? These guys are physical. They should be put man-to-man press. You should do anything more of that and less of the zone situations. I understand at some points you got to use zone, blah, 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 but sorry, you've got to put Asante Samuel one-on-one with your lead guy for any opponent, but also you've got another guy, Jarian Jones, that is a physical corner, and then you're loaded wherever else, honestly. And it just doesn't work too well for Florida State's defense. It just never has. And I don't understand what happened 2 Saturdays ago.
Other players that Miami fans should look out for the defensive side of the football for Florida State. I know Asante Samuels, 2 INTs this past game against Georgia Tech. He's a local kid from Broward County. St. Thomas Aquinas. It was a little bit of a Florida State Miami battle at the end, but Florida State did lock him in ultimately. I know Amari Gaynor as well led the team in tackles. So any players to look out for?
Probably my 2 are going to be Amari Gaynor and Hamza Nasruddin. Hamza Nasruddin, we haven't seen him play this season yet, but he is by far one of the best returning safeties in college football. He actually had a chance to go to the league, honestly, but he got hurt during the Florida game. He had some talk with some scouts and here and there, but he decided to stay another year. We haven't seen him play yet this season. He had a season-ending injury. I mean, it was Florida, but you look at a guy that is a tackling machine, man. I mean, he's nuts, and both Amari Gaynor and him should bring a pretty big impact. I think Hamza Nasruddin will probably be your biggest impact. I think he was fine and good to go. He could have been playing on Saturday if they really needed him against Georgia Tech. I don't think they were really expecting to really need him against Georgia Tech, so he didn't play. So he gets Georgia Tech off. He gets the bye week off to rest just a little bit more and make sure he's full force. But I think his debut will be on Saturday night in Coral Gables, and that's huge for FSU. He changed his number from number 23 to number 5. So keep an eye out for him and number 33, Amari Gaynor, who they're going to probably have to use him. They're going to probably have to use Gaynor to help keep eyes on and keep contained with Derek King, because he's got the speed and athleticism, and for a quarterback like Derek King, you're gonna have to have eyes on him, and it's going to be interesting on where Adam Fuller puts his best playmakers. But Hamza Nasruddin, man, I'm really excited about having him back. I want him in Pittsburgh for my Steelers, because I think he's just a dog, and he just finds a way to fly to the ball and tackle, and that's what you're going to need against a quarterback and an offense like Miami that is going to be quick tempo, and you need a guy that's a general in the backfield on the defensive side.
Gotcha. Logan, I'm going to bring in my co-host, Brad. He's joining us right now. Had to come in late. Brad, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
What's going on, fellas?
Good. Logan, he's been doing a great job breaking down the Miami-Florida State preview. Very informative individual. He started Noles Gameday himself, man. He's done a hell of a job.
Nice.
Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying it. I mean, I'm squeezed in between 2 Miami guys, orange and green, and I'm on a live stream with Miami fans all over the place. But I will say the chat is a lot more nicer than I am whenever we're on the Mark Rogers show. So I do appreciate the chat. A lot more niceness right now.
For sure, man.
We appreciate you coming on, man. It takes a lot of balls to come on, man. So thank you. A lot of respect. I appreciate it, man.
I think when I was backstage, I heard you talking about Nas. As far as him as safety and being a playmaker for y'all, how would you compare him to a guy like Bubba Bolden for our team?
I think they have a lot of good attributes that they bring. That, like I was saying, a general, that a guy that can step up and can tackle. I know at least on Hamza Nasruddin's role of things, he's going to be expected to be, if not by the end of the game, a leading tackler. He did it last season. He was right up there with the top 3, top 2 of being a great tackler and for Florida State. And he's got more of a more mental state and doesn't make too much mistakes. And that's something that you're going to have against an offense. And I was telling Paul earlier about Derek King and having to contain him. You got to have a guy that's able to spy and be a good tackler. And if you're going to do that, Hamza Nasruddin brings that. So I think they both have really good attributes and are going to have to be generals on Saturday night.
For sure. And I see one of your backup quarterbacks, Purdy, is at least active and cleared, correct?
Yes.
Is that someone that you would think that Florida State would probably use as like the scout guy to mock what Derek King would do on the as far as what quarterback on Florida State? I feel like he might be the most closest to do that.
Yeah, there's Chuba Purdy and there's also Jordan Travis. I think Purdy, I don't expect to see him on Saturday night. He just recently got out of his sling. He had a second surgery. He had an infection on his first surgery. So I don't expect Purdy to be out there. But if I'm thinking scout, it'd be a mix of maybe Purdy, because he also was able to throw in high school, and then also Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis really isn't a thrower, but he can run the ball. He's got great vision like a running back. So to get prepared for Derek King, I think it's probably they probably had Jordan Travis doing most of the work until Purdy was able to get into some throwing things, because we talked about earlier, if Florida State can contain and get something after King defensive line wise and try to make him throw, make him get uncomfortable, Florida State does have a chance defensively, most certainly. And, Louisville's defense isn't phenomenal, able to go at 500 yards. It's going to be, I think, this is a big game. It's a rivalry, but it's a wake-up call for a lot of players, and it will be on Saturday night. Definitely.
I mean, all these kids grew up down in South Florida. I mean, this is Pop Warner Little League football. I mean, they go way back. This is backyard football. I think this could possibly be one of those games where it might not be as close as people think, in my opinion. I just think, I mean, you mentioned as far as your D-line with our offensive line could possibly give problems, but then we kind of reverse those roles. And I mean, this defensive line compared to your offensive line, I don't know as far as how many are juniors or seniors, but just looking based off film the past couple of games and on paper, I mean, we lost a number 15 jersey, future first round pick, and we removed him with another 15 jersey, and it looks like he could be a first round pick. So our D line is very deep. I mean, we even got some young guys like Harrison Hunt. Jafari Harvey is a kid that hasn't really been that vocal on the football field this season, but we had a high expectation for it last year. So that's a kid I'm looking to see for Florida State do some things. But I think either way, I think it will be a dogfight at least the first, second quarters. I mean, you're going to see that all these kids are familiar with each other, man. They know their weaknesses, they know their strengths. So it's definitely going to be a rivalry game to watch like no other.
Yeah, no, that's the reason why it's on primetime, baby. That's why it's always on primetime, even when Florida State's dookie right now, and they're in definitely a big rebuilding year. The logos hit differently, and even when the SEC's coming back this weekend, Florida State, Miami's still on primetime, even though Florida State lost their first game. College game days there too. I mean, it just hits differently, and that's my favorite rivalry. It's my favorite rivalry over the Florida Gators, just because I think it's nastier hits. There's trash talking, and there's way more better stories in my opinion, and just how things go. And definitely, like you said earlier, these boys grew up together. Most of these guys did. I mean, they were playing early Pop Warner and then also high school football, and they were probably already talking trash then, and a lot of them don't even like each other. And that's why Miami versus Florida State is one of the best rivalries in college football, and that's a reason why ABC, ESPN is going to be there prime time in Coral Gables, even though even if there's 13,000 fans there, that's usually the max of the attendance there, and Miami anyways. This is where the chat starts getting pissed off at me, but I had to rile it up a little bit. 6:38, only got about 20 minutes left, but yeah, I think I love the rivalry. It's my favorite.
Logan,
for sure.
In order for Florida State to have success in this football game, what do they have to do?
Well, offensive line play would be a nice one, most certainly. Biggest thing is defensive line, though. It's going to have to be the way. I mean, Florida State has had a terrible and really unfortunate events in executing their game plans against running quarterbacks that can just get out of the pocket. Derek King likes to throw the ball, most certainly, but the Florida State defense, and if Miami looks back at previous tape, and all they have right now is Georgia Tech, but if they look back at previous seasons, they have a really hard time being able to deal with these guys that can run the ball that are on the quarterback side. So Marvin Wilson, wake up. Corey Durden, you want to go to the league too. We got to see. I don't even, the only thing I remember seeing against Georgia Tech was his spin move that I don't even know what was happening. It looked like I was in slow motion in real life. But and then obviously you got to hope that Kando's good to go too. We'll see if that's right. But Janaris Robinson, veteran, Robert Cooper, you're expected to be a veteran. You've got a D-line unit that was the same as last year, and you're going into a new season and looked pitiful against Georgia Tech. And that, I mean, I'm not being mean. I mean, that's they were told way worse things in film room. And I hope that they keep that in their mind. They have it ready to roll whenever they get into, and hopefully, it's adrenaline rush whenever you're going into a stadium like that and the rivalry. And that usually dwells well for defensive linemen. And, Florida State's got to find a way to get after Derek King and put him into uncomfortable positions to throw that ball, because he likes to run the ball, but he can throw, but put him into uncomfortable positions is what Florida State's going to have to do, because there is DBs to make the plays. And Asante Samuel Jr. also, if you're going to make a pick, brother, please take it back and don't let a 280-pound lineman tackle you. Let's don't ever let that happen ever again.
Yeah, and one guy we've been mentioning for the first 2 games for the Hurricanes, you talk about running ability, and if I don't remember correctly, a lot of the Florida State players pregame got into this player's face, and he stood there by himself, and that is Cam Harris, and that's a kid that I fully believe is going to remember that and take it on to this game on Saturday. He's been one of the best players on our football team so far, and I expect him to do big things along with it. I think this is a coming out party for a kid like Jalen Knighton. I think, if you're a true freshman and, you pick between Miami and Florida State, this is the coming out party. Unfortunately, the guy that recruited you and Mike Norvell is not going to be there. He's going to be featured Wally. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. You know what the funny thing is that we're so used to, and I know y'all are too, with Florida State running backs absolutely just brutally bullying Miami defenses.
Yeah.
I was just got done. We uploaded a video on our Instagram. Dalvin Cook just diced him up and, enjoyed it. And it's usually like a Devontae Freeman too, eats them alive. They're all from the 305 too, and maybe that's what does it. But it could be roles switched here on Saturday night. Like you said, Harris also, they've got a running game, and that's where linebackers got to come in and play. And it will be interesting to see. 9 former Florida State commit. Now Miami, he looks like he's going to be a solid running back and for the Miami Hurricanes in his future. And, you got to hope that Florida State, this is not an out or a coming out party for Knighton. That would just be brutal. I think it was brutal enough. I know on Twitter and inside our Discord, everybody talking about it whenever Knighton scored a touchdown last Saturday. It's just because, that's a former guy that was committed. And, it's just never good to see someone wearing orange score a touchdown that was formerly committed to Florida State. So there could be roles reversed, that something that we're not used to seeing, even Cam Akers too. But most certainly thinking back, Dalvin Cook and Devontae Freeman, coming from the 305, it just hit differently with those two.
It's crazy how many players are involved, from the Miami area. Dante Lucas was in that pregame scruffle.
No, yeah.
He went to Miami Senior High School. Like, it's insane. And we just mentioned Devontae Freeman, Dalvin Cook, Jalen Knighton's from Deerfield Beach High School. He was committed late to Florida State. Like, every single player on both rosters, I feel like, have been offered by Florida State or Miami, or it's been a recruiting battle down to the wire. So it really, there's a lot of tension in this game. And, a lot of players are banged up after the game. There's usually a lot of injuries and they're not ready to go the next week. So get ready for some fireworks. I love it, man. Miami, Florida State, it's finally starting to hit more and more closer. Got a question for Logan. Is it a big impact for this Florida State football program not being coached by Mike Norvell Saturday night?
I think it's I'm not going to say it's a brutal hit, but it is going to be different. The lucky thing is Chris Thomason, your deputy head coach, now going to be pretty much your interim guy, has had past experience being a head coach. So it's nothing new to him. That's a good thing. You also have another guy, Odell Higgins, who has been an interim coach, I feel like, every friggin' year at this point. It feels like it. Seriously, it's nuts. But it is going to be a hit because, a head coach, a lot of things are done more of just him being there more than anything. Behind the scenes, your pregame meeting, What's that going to be like? Is he going to be in a webcam in the hotel room in the lobby, giving them a speech on what to do, what's going on, what kind of execution? Where's your mental state at? This has got to be a big game for the leaders on the field, but off the field too. Whenever they leave, which is I think later this evening, whenever they get on the buses to go to the airport or wherever, if they're driving. That's got to start in the leaders and how it begins. They got to step up and be able to be there and mind for Mike Norvell. And it will be a different feeling on that sideline. I mean, they only had one game with Mike Norvell. They didn't even have a spring game. So the first game is Georgia Tech. They lose, and then you're hoping to have them. But it's such a weird year, and it's such a tough situation for Florida State. It's rough. New coaching staff, no spring. You got a little bit of fall camp. It's tough. So it's going to be a hit. It's going to be a hit for Florida State on Saturday, I believe.
What I'm concerned about, as far as if I'm looking at Florida State, is you guys have already had questions as far as how the team has been in the past 6 months with Norvell. A lot of guys jumping ship, getting back on board. A lot of guys disagreeing with Norvell. Now that you don't have your head coach there, and you talk about that some of these leaders on the Florida State football team who were already questioning being on the team before the season started. What I'm worried about is, what if you go into halftime down 14, 21 points to Miami already? How are those guys going to react in the locker room? Are their heads going to be down? Are they going to already be giving up? Or are they going to use this momentum and this fuel that being down and playing against pretty much your brothers that you grew up with? I mean, this is one game that I don't care if you're a freshman or a senior on either football team. This is a game where you shouldn't have to light someone's fire under them. I mean, this is what you committed to Miami and Florida State for, is this game right here. There's no bigger rivalry in college football than the Miami-Florida State football game. And, I mean, we talk about it this whole time about how these guys grew up with each other. I mean, this isn't just some ordinary game. This is to prove kind of like your own mentality and like what you bring to the table. I mean, any kid on that football team is going to be talking crap to one another. It's going to be who can outsmart the other one. And I think it comes down to two things. And this is two things that Florida State in the past has killed us on when they were up on the winning streak for like 4 or 5 years. And that's a coach with an offensive coordinator mind and a quarterback. When you have a coach and a quarterback that can work together, things can happen. I mean, look at what Jimbo and Jameis did together. I mean, so I think now we have, I mean, obviously Manny's the head coach, but you look at a guy like Rhett Lashley and Garrett King, what they're doing already. I think this is a game for both of them. We look back in Norvell's last football game as a coordinator before he was a Hurricane was against the defensive coordinator for Florida State, and he did pretty well against him. So I'm expecting a huge offensive performance from Miami. I hope that we keep the turnovers limited again. I mean, obviously, that's another key thing. We haven't had any turnovers on the football team from our quarterback and our whole football roster. So I think that's big. In a football game like this, you got to be able to control your feelings and kind of lay low. With that, we had so many dumb penalties last game. I think this is a game where hopefully things don't get out of control early.
Yeah, no, going back to the mental state, and if Florida State does go down early, I have been stressing it a lot this week. I'm kind of worried about Florida State's mental state for a rivalry game. I don't think they're ready yet for a rivalry game to win games. The main thing that Florida State's struggling is that they find more ways to lose games than to win them. That's what the current state of the program is right now. And we saw it against Georgia Tech. There was no reason to lose against Georgia Tech. There was 28 points that Florida State should have had on the board that they missed out on. Execution. Players were put into positions to make those plays. Emmett Rice is your veteran linebacker for Florida State. That's a pick six that was dropped. Asante Samuel Jr., 2 pick sixes that should have been brought back for touchdowns. And then Tamarion Terry, that's another touchdown that he dropped. That's 28 points. The game shouldn't even been a game heading into the third quarter, but that's just the place that Florida State is in right now. And I definitely don't think right now mentally, unless something changes for me on Saturday night and I can come back on here and talk with you guys and say, hey, Florida State actually looked like, no giving up. Guys were ready to take on the guy in front of them. Until that happens, I can't say that Florida State's ready to face end-state rival right now. And that's a lot of people will agree with that. A lot of the fans will, and that it sucks to hear it. But, that just wasn't the case 2010, 2013, 14, even 15 for Florida State. with how competing with somebody is in a rival. You know, Timmy Jernigan, LaMarcus Joyner, Jalen Ramsey, Derwin James, Jameis Winston. I mean, that, you know,
You talk about the early 2000s too, man, with Ernie Sims. I mean, you had Antonio Cromartie. I mean, you guys had some elite first rounders. I mean, that 2000 game was one of the best games I've ever seen. You want to talk about talent all over the football field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good thing about Miami versus Florida State. There's usually you see future guys that are going to be in the NFL for long periods of their career too, and that's a good thing. That's why it's on prime time on Saturday night.
Absolutely. There's no substitute teachers on either football team for us.
No, you ain't lying.
All right. Well,
I think we lost
did we lose Paul?
I think we did lose Paul.
That Miami internet down there, is it getting a little too wild?
It must be Dante Lucas covering up the signal.
Oh no! It also might be those colors that he's wearing. That might be what's going on. That's might be why we're losing him.
I'm sure what he was probably going to ask you was what is your prediction for the Miami Florida State game?
Is that what it was, Paul?
Yeah. It was the prediction.
Okay.
I think this is a fun game. I love Miami versus Florida State. I think there's going to be a lot of trash talking, like you were saying, Brad, right off the rip and warm-ups. But that's just how the state is. In order for Florida State to stay in this, it's going to have to be an organized football team. It's going to have to stay disciplined, something that they've struggled in so many times, man. They've struggled so badly with making stupid penalties. The good thing about we saw last Saturday, there wasn't a lot of giving up. But like I said, this is a rivalry game, so things could hit differently. But there wasn't a lot of giving up. Guys were not blaming each other really and pointing at one another. And that's a good start for a rebuilding. And you got a coach that is very disciplined, even though he's not going to be there. They've coached, throughout the last 2 weeks on changing things. And so I do think, though, this team is not ready in the mental state for a rivalry game. Definitely this is a Miami team that likes to be rambunctious. They like to celebrate the little things and piss off the team that's in front of them. And I don't know if Florida State's there. Usually they are. If Jalen Ramsey was on that side of the ball, it'd be all day long. You got to have an alpha male. I'm not sure if Florida State has an alpha male. I mean, of course, there's Marvin Wilson, but I don't think there's a true alpha male, and that's hard to win rivalry games when you don't have alpha males. Definitely on Florida State's side of things defensively. And unless someone shows up, this game is not going to be good for Florida State heading into the fourth quarter. I got Miami winning this game 34-21, and Florida State starts out the season 0-2. But it's a really, really tough year for Florida State, and I think obviously Florida State fans want to see a win out of a rival, which they haven't seen in a good while, and it's just not going to be the case this Saturday. But I do think there is some optimism. Like I said, there was 28 unanswered points, or there was 28 points two Saturdays ago that Florida State didn't execute on, and players were put into the right positions to do them. And so I think there is some optimism that this could actually be a game. Just right now, though, until mental things change inside those helmets, I don't think Florida State's ready to face a Miami team that's rambunctious and just has some alphas that Florida State is used to having. They've had them in the past, man, and they also don't have Cam Akers. Florida State has relied on running backs to keep Florida State in games, and right now Deshaun Corbin is not going to be that guy, and I think LaDamian Webb is actually going to be one of your best running backs actually this season. So that's my prediction.
Awesome. Hey, Logan, one more question before you go. Just curious. I'm going to give you 3 cornerbacks in the state of Florida. I want you to rank them from 1 to 3. Who you think the best is? Kyer Elam, Al Blades Jr., Asante Samuel Jr.
Ooh, wow.
I'll tell you what, the reason why Asante Samuel Jr. had those interceptions, and I think Asante Samuel Jr. is going to end up being one of the best corners in the ACC this year. I predicted that last year at this point, I think, or somewhere. I think he's going to have a huge year. But, Jeff Sims, young quarterback, tosses the ball right to him. Any of us on here on this show tonight could have intercepted Jeff Sims. Should have had this. He should have brought it back for friggin' 6 points too. But I still think I'd put Asante at 2. Who do you have as who the first name you said?
Kyer Elam from Florida. I think I would actually go with Mr. Rubicon. I would go Elam 1, Blades 2, Samuel. Me personally, I would almost put Blades and Samuel like 2A, 2B. Like they're pretty neck and neck. I don't think I could even put a third, but I do think Elam is probably a little bit better than both.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Elam 1, I don't know. Since I hopefully there's some FSU fans in here. If they ever listen to this, they're going to think since I just picked Florida State to lose against a rival and I'm putting a Florida State Nole third, a DB, I'm going to put Asante Samuel number 2. I will put Blades 3 because I got to have some kind of trash talk in here. I can't just come on here and predict Florida State to lose and then be surrounded by these colors too on both sides of me.
No worries, man. I know. We appreciate you coming on though.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. You're a class act, and thank you, man. I appreciate your honesty and your just breakdown of the game overall, man. Thank you again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Definitely, and for inviting me for a second time. Really enjoyed it. And if Florida State does get that upset, I am expected to be invited once again for my third time on the show. And we have a beautiful chat. I promise I will have a drink too in my hand. And we will look back at the game and just enjoy it as a chat on YouTube and everything. But yeah, appreciate it. And good luck with everything going on this season and keep it up. 120 people watching. That's awesome. Hit that friggin' like button. What are you guys doing?
Love it. Appreciate it, Logan.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend. See ya.
All right, Logan Robinson, Noles Gameday. In 4 minutes, we will be having the infamous Borregales family.
I cannot wait. Great family.
That's going to be epic. After the 57-yard field goal. That's not normal. Like,
not normal at all.
We're so spoiled now because, like, Bubba Baxa and Fiegels, I mean, like, it was just like, say 2 Hail Marys, cross your fingers, like, whoever you believe in, whatever God. I don't know if you're an atheist, like, pray to something because, like, it just wasn't going to happen with those guys, man. We couldn't score points. And then we couldn't change field position with any other program, any other team we faced, man. It was awful. And to get this gift of God with freaking Headley and Borregales, I mean, this is insane. I'm ecstatic about it.
Yes, absolutely, man. And I think we're overlooking the other part of special teams, and that's the punter too, right? You talk about Lou Headley. I mean, if college football ever had a wrestling team, I think we would have the best tag team match ever with Borregales and Headley. I mean, those two guys, I've never seen a punter and kicker look as furious, as confident in what they do on the field like them two, man. And we talk about Borregales hitting the 57-yard field goal. I think we take him for granted, man, because as soon as he got on the football field, you could see a different demeanor, the way he warms up, the way he carries himself. He's got that Miami swagger as a kicker.
Oh, yeah.
Something that we've been missing. And I mean, he hit it from 57, but they were talking about he's hit a 70-yard in practice. Like 70-yard field goal in practice? That is ridiculous.
That ball he kicked against Louisville probably would have hit 65.
Yeah, definitely 60. And we'll talk to his little brother and his mom as well in a little bit.
He's also committed to Miami.
Correct.
And he's
number one
kicker in the nation. He's going to be our guy next year. So,
and man, we talk about Jose, and I tell you what, Andy. I've got to hung out with him and the family a few times, and that kid, man, he looks like a quiet kid, but he has some swagger to him. He had like the way he carries a chip on his shoulder, like he knows he's the man. He just doesn't like to say it unless like he's comfortable around you. But that kid is going to be the next big time star for Miami. I can't wait to see him in a Cane uniform. But obviously, we got to enjoy his brother for right now, who's doing amazing things.
Absolutely. And people are asking who our next punter is. I think Lou Headley has an extra year of eligibility as well, so he will be back next year. So
if he wants to, yeah. He's creeping up to the Scott Patchen age, though. I will say that. He might have a couple kids at daycare by then.
God almighty. Poor Scott Patchen, man. He's like a 3-time Hurricane legacy. Oh, his father played at UM.
Yes. I mean, could you imagine we could have had him on this football team still.
I know. I mean, just
like how crazy that is.
My whole thing, it's not Scott Patchen's fault at all. It's like, why do you start him over Gregory Rousseau? I get the whole veteran presence, but like, this is a top 5
I'll say this. I mean, last time I was on the show, this was after the Louisville game, and I said there wasn't really much you could complain about. Well, there is, and there still is. And I think going to the situation you said with the whole Scott Patchen, how do we have Scott Patchen starting over Greg Russo? I think that kind of puts a little bit of pressure on a guy like Blake Baker. I think Blake Baker is still doing a couple things that I think like even a normal fan that barely watches football is like just the most obvious things that you shouldn't do. I mean, we still have guys not in the right position, not covering their gaps. We still have some players on the football team that I feel like is not getting a lot of reps. Look at a kid like Jafari Harvey. I think he needs to be in a little bit more.
Sam Brooks, Avery Huff.
Exactly. But I think
McLeod played very well last game, to be fair.
He did. McLeod did, but the rest of the linebacking group did not. I thought the linebacker group was probably one of the worst positions out of all of them, if we had to nitpick. But I think as a whole, I mean, you can't complain about this Hurricane team from 2 weeks into the season to what we had last year.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We are still like 5 or 6 months out from being the only team to not score in a bowl game. I think people forget that. And it was against Louisiana Tech out of all teams. Like, we don't even need to be in the same sentence as them. And I think now you're starting to see we talked about this a couple shows ago, man. It's you got to catch lightning in a bottle. That's how college football is these days. It's very quick and easy to be able to turn around a program if you get the right guys in place. LSU is a perfect example. I'm not saying we are the next LSU, but I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Brady and Burrow. I mean, those two guys connected very well. You got Lashley and King that can pretty much similar do the same things. I know a lot of fans were worried about how many points the defense has given up so far. We take a year back and we look at LSU's team. LSU, I believe, had like 4 or 5 games where they allowed like more than 35, 38 points. But they also averaged 10 more points a game than what we're doing right now. So you got to put that in perspective as well. But anything could happen. Just like with this recruiting, anything could happen. You look at what happened with Jake Garcia and his family, stuff being under investigation right now. I don't know what's going to come out with that. It sounds like he's more heavily towards USC even more now.
Really?
Yeah.
So who is? I mean, like I need a quarterback in every class. Like I just need that. That's a fail. That's a complete failure as a staff not to land a quarterback. Are we going to the transfer portal? I need something at the quarterback position. I mean, as a fan,
me personally, I wouldn't worry about it just because of 2 reasons. One, a lot of people need to remember we still got N'Kosi Perry on the football team, and we got a kid like Tyler Van Dyke who has a lot of upside and a lot of people have confidence in. And not to mention, I get it. Not to mention, I don't know why people are writing De'Ara King off to leave. This is. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, we have the biggest card to pull out of our pocket when this season ends. I mean, obviously, I don't want to look that far ahead because we need to live in the moment right now, and we are doing phenomenal. We need to take it week by week. But at the end of this year, if De'Ara King's not literally like, all right, he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Todd McShay and Mel Kiper are already putting this guy on the big board. If he's not that guy, why not pull out the Alabama card and say, hey, they don't believe in you after what you just did this year. Maybe it's because of our schedule, but you can make them believe first game into next season, playing against Alabama, first game in in Atlanta Stadium.
Right.
Put the world on the map again and show that this year is not a fluke. I mean, because that was his issue. I mean, the competition he played against. And unfortunately, right now, the competition we played hasn't been that good. And it still isn't looking that good. I mean, you look at a Florida State team. I mean, even their own fans, even the own guy that's covering them, nobody is confident in this Florida State team. So the only really game we got is Clemson.
But, I mean, hey, that is a big game. And, if things do go well, which is what we always expect as fans, ACC title game, you're probably going to get Clemson again. So you have 2 times against Clemson.
Yep.
It's a long way to talk. I mean, we're so far away from that decision. A lot of things could change. So, hey, De'Ara King, he still has not said he's going to leave Miami after this season. So it's still in play. I'm with it. Amari Daniels, he's going to announce a top 2 in a couple weeks. Brad, have you heard where does Miami stand? Local running back from Miami Central. You got to take a local.
We're looking good still.
We're looking good.
I believe we will be one of the top, one of the 2. You could possibly see a SEC school in there as well. But I think
A&M?
yes.
Okay.
But I think we still got a lot of chances with a guy like Amari. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think we're gonna. What I'm interested in is linebackers. Because right now it looks like our best linebacker in the group right now is Deshaun Troutman, who is recently going to get a bump up in the star ranking. It looks like he's doing phenomenal. But you lose a kid like Ja'Cory Hammett. Now we're down to 2 linebackers. We're already looking a little suspect in the linebacker room on the football teams, very similar to corners. I think corners and linebackers are the 2 key positions that you need to go into the portal after this year. I think you need to get a proven guy in both positions. I think the one guy that we should have probably put all of our eggs in our basket, very similar to how we did with De'Ara King, was the linebacker from North Dakota or South Dakota State that ended up going.
Oh, yes. He went to LSU. He was very good.
Yes, that kid definitely should have been in a Hurricane uniform. I mean, that guy had all the stats. He would have been easily the best linebacker on the football team. I want us to have that headhunter linebacker again, man. I miss the Sean Spences. I miss the Denzel Perrimans. I miss the Dan Morgans, the Michael Barrows. Like, I need that guy to solidify the linebacker position. I think right now, you look at our defense, our D-line is great. Our linebackers are a little suspect. Same thing with corners. They are improving. That's all I look at, honestly. Every week, we just need to improve. You look at guys like Mark Pope and DJ Ivey. All of us got on them week 1. Week 2, they did better. They didn't do their best, but they improved, which is all I care about. Just keep improving. But I think you look at the secondary, you look at a kid like Bubba Bolden, man. I don't see him coming back after this year. He is honestly the best player on our defense, I think, in my opinion, either him or Jalen Phillips. I would compare him to Jaquan Johnson, but a little bit more bigger and more athletic. I think what he brings to the football team, he is the security blanket for our defense. There were so many opportunities. Yes, he wasn't in the right play at the right time to maybe pick off a ball or get there a little sooner. But when there was one-on-one tackling needed to be done, to where if Bubba Bolden didn't miss that tackle, we could have easily seen another 14 to 17 points for Louisville if it wasn't for Bubba Bolden.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. He saved us big time against Louisville. Played a great game. He even apologized to Manny Diaz for missing some assignments as well after the game. Like, he's not satisfied, which is great.
Yep. And I see a lot of people still throwing our boy Jaden Hood on the chat. I still think we're in third for him. I have heard that Minnesota's trending a little bit more than normal. Not saying he's going to decommit from Michigan, but I know him and Minnesota are very close.
And Brad, why? I know we interviewed Jaden Hood a month ago, give or take. I mean, why do you think Miami didn't really go all in for Jaden Hood, or local kid from St. Thomas Aquinas, Broward County? I mean, slips to potentially Minnesota or a Michigan. I mean, he's going out of state. Like, what happened to the big 3 schools? Locking down South Florida. I mean, what happened with Jaden Hood? Do you think?
Jaden Hood's just one of those kids, man. He comes from a very good family. The way he's raised, I think he's a little bit smarter than most. He doesn't really have too many people in his ear to kind of direct him towards a certain situation. I think he's just looking more long-term, man. That's a kid where I think he really wants to explore outside of Florida. I know that was one thing that very interested in him. He wanted to get outside the state of Florida. Some kids just want to do that, man. I think another kid that we missed out on was Keyshawn Green, which obviously went to Nebraska, and now I believe he went to FAU. Yeah, I think that was a kid that we missed out on as well, that we should have got. But we'll see, man. I think there's still a couple guys out there that, depending on how they are, I know the whole Terrence Lewis thing was a lot of smoke. I know it's kind of died down a little bit. We'll see. Well, trying to think what he just said. Let's talk about receivers, Pope and Harley. Yeah, so Pope and Harley, those are 2 guys that obviously they could have made a little bit more better plays last game. But I do think Pope definitely improved. You look at the stat line, a lot of people might overlook this, but an actual wide receivers on our football team, Mark Pope is our leading wide receiver. I know it's hard to believe, but go look at the receptions and the yards. Brevin Jordan's the only guy higher than Mark Pope.
Wow.
So Mark Pope is doing better. He's obviously gotten a lot more playing time than he did all last year. But I think this is a Florida State game, man. This is where a lot of these kids. This is where it makes or breaks you, man. This is where you came to Miami for. Was this game right here? Yeah, if you wanna be known for being a big Hurricane player, making that big play. Talk about Roscoe Parrish, Sean Taylor, Dan Morgan. Guys make Darrell Langham with the catch. Darrell Langham was only known for those 2 catches. I believe he probably had less than 10 catches the rest of the year, but those 2 catches alone made Darrell Langham.
We have Vivian Borregales. Oh, she was backstage. She just exited out. She'll be coming on shortly, and so will Andres as well. Don't miss out on that interview. Cannot wait to hear from the Borregales family. Before we get them on stage, Brad, listen, this game, Miami's favored by, some say 9.5. I've seen DraftKings have us at 11.5. Yeah. Look, regardless of, the score, how, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think the first quarter is going to tell a lot. I want to see how Rhett Lassie calls the play calling for this game. I'm hoping we go full force right off the gate. It being a rivalry game, I want us to make a statement early. I want it to be like at halftime where the only 80 Florida State fans that are in attendance, they're all gone by halftime. That's how I want it. I think the final score is going to end up being 41-10 is how I see it. I think it will be 41-10.
Love it. And without further ado, we have the Borregales family joining us.
Hey.
Andres and Vivian, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come on, guys.
Hi, how are you? Good night.
Good. How are y'all?
Very
Mr. Borregales, what's up?
I love it. You got the whole family. What's up, guys?
Yes. How are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Good to see y'all again. Good to see y'all. So right off the bat, let's start with your older brother, Andres. How was that experience watching? I know the first game we were all there, got to hang out with you guys for a little bit for the home opener. But how was that experience seeing your brother hit that 57-yard field goal?
It's excitement, honestly, because I know I hit a 56. So now we have our own competition. So now he has the record of both of us.
Yeah. So I know the next 3 to 4 years you're going to be trying to break that record.
Yep.
For sure. But no tattoos.
Hey, I already.
You know what I think about it. But
For sure. Well, what did y'all think about that Canes football edit that they did with the whole Madden accuracy kick on that play? How do you think that was? That was cool, right?
yeah, that was cool. Actually, the person that did that is a genius.
Question for the Borregales family. You guys are of Venezuelan descent, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you guys get into the game of football? Did you guys play soccer growing up as younger? How do you develop that strong of a leg? And because American football, in Venezuela, most popular sport I would say is baseball, and then soccer, basketball as well. So how did you get into the game of American football?
Okay. My husband has been watching football since he was a little boy.
Wow.
We watched. We can watch all the games in Venezuela, so he usually watched the games.
Yeah.
And always when I pass by, I said, "Why are you looking? What are you watching? What is that?" I never understood that game. I just saw that a bunch of people hitting each other, and that's it. But yeah. They play soccer. So when we moved here, they play soccer there. Well, Andy was too little, but Jose started playing soccer over there. When we moved here, was the first thing that we looked soccer club. So they started practicing soccer, but behind the soccer field was a football field. And he started watching the kids playing football. And one day he told me, "Hey," and I say, "No, that. So, it's at the end, turns that I have a friend, the owner of the soccer group, has a kid the same age as Jose, and he was a kicker. And she told me, "Oh yeah, you can put him to play, and he can play kicker. It's a good position." Okay. So that's was my idea. When I went to sign up Jose over there, they saw Andy, and they want to Andy start playing peewees too. So I signed up both, but I told the coach, "Oh, he's gonna be kicker only." But no, forget it. They play everything. They play all the positions, but of course, always focusing in the kicking.
For sure, for sure. Well, I want to ask the parents is a lot of fans might not know this, unless they kind of get to know your sons, especially with Andy and also with Jose. But they're very quiet kids. But once you get to know them, they kind of open up and they got this confidence. They got this swagger about them. Where do they get that from? The mom, dad, a little bit of both? Because I know Andy especially, man. He looks like a quiet kid, but as soon as you get to talking, you're like, this kid has it. This kid has it.
Yeah, maybe that because yeah, he looks very quiet, but yeah, he after you know him better, so
exactly. I love the confidence from both of them. I mean, you watch your brother Jose warm up. I mean, and he's just got this calm demeanor about him where like no outside presence kind of affects him at all. He's got this tunnel vision and he just does his thing, man. I think him wanting the moment is kind of like similar to, I know you guys are Heat fans as well. You look at a young kid like Tyler Hero, he wants the moment. You know what I mean? He's not afraid of the pressure. He actually likes it more when the pressure's built on him. I think with the Borregales, both of y'all as well, it's very similar, man. I can see the same demeanor and stuff like that.
actually they do better when they have pressure. They when they are so confident, they don't do too great. They have to feel the pressure to do it great.
For sure.
I got a question for Andres. You've been committed to the University of Miami for quite a while. Did your commitment play a major role in Jose transferring to Miami for his final year of eligibility?
No, not at all. I was caught by surprise at first that he transferred, and then Miami happened to offer him. So
Yeah.
but I was no influence.
Andy, they talked about the 57-yard field goal your brother hit, but they also said that in practice he's hit a 70. Have you seen him hit a 70 when you guys do your rivalries?
I haven't really seen him hit a 70, but it was like 65 that I've seen him. But
yeah, about that 57 definitely could have almost went 65, I think.
Yeah.
It was nice.
What were the emotions of the whole family, you know, when you got to see, you know, your older brother, your son go out there literally on the 50-yard line in front of the Cardinal logo to kick that field goal? Were you guys kind of nervous, or were you guys just confident that he was going to make it? Because, I mean, that's a really big kick. Even myself, I was like, can we do this? Is this possible right now?
Yeah, we always be very nervous, but it's because the moment. So
Right,
I
absolutely.
know, and I have the trust that he's gonna make it. But you know, the nervous is always there.
It's a completely different experience between my parents and me. Because my parents, they're nervous, but I'm just anxious to see it go in.
For sure.
I have that much confidence in my brother that I don't really get nervous. I just get excited to know that it's going in.
And that's one thing I definitely got to preach to all the Kane fans watching right now. If your last name is Borregales, the pressure is nothing to them, man. I can honestly say that these kids are born under the spotlight, man. They're not worried about pressure. They love it. I like what we're gonna see for the next 4 years. It's gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think you guys as well know. I mean, obviously with the family being huge Kane fans already, but I think it shows that, I mean, we don't take special teams for granted. You know, I mean, we show the kickers and the punters just as much love as the starting quarterback. You know what I mean? And I know Andy sees that all the time. Anytime he goes to a football game, you got my boy Derek Coe yelling your name or everybody coming to see you, man. It's like we always like to show people love, especially kickers like yourself, man. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
How was the adjustment for Jose? I mean, FIU, it's a huge school. Transferring to Miami, it's a smaller private school. Was it a very smooth adjustment for Jose to transfer from one program to another? And how, was he texting you guys, talking to you guys, and maybe it was a concern at all, or was it pretty smooth transition?
It was pretty smooth. Yeah. Pretty smooth. He don't have any problem, and he's happy. He can adapt any type of situations. So he's good.
And Andy, how was your how was your transfer go? How did everything go? The process going from Shamadan to Champion with my guy Hector Clavijo now.
I mean, I'm just there for school. So and like school wise, since I am all online, I'm pretty adapted to it.
Awesome,
lovely. And what was I going to ask, Andres? Right now, are you actively, talking to coaches at the University of Miami program, and what coaches really made a big impact on your relationship with the coaching staff that you've built a bond with?
Honestly, Coach Packy and Coach Calter, those are the two ones that I have like the best connection with, and also Manny. I have a good connection with them too. So
nice,
absolutely. You guys are going to be going to the game on Saturday night?
Of course. Yeah, we will be there.
Yep.
How excited are you guys?
I'll see y'all there.
Is this your first Miami, Florida State game that you're going to be going in attendance? How excited are you guys to be there?
Super excited. Yeah, and it's the first time that we're going, right? Yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, man, it's going to be a little
super
different.
excited.
Yep.
For sure.
Well, I got to ask you guys, my last question personally. I'm born and raised in Miami. My go-to arepa placers are Arepazo and Don Golosón. Do you guys have one that I can check out? Because
yes.
I need to try new spots. What's a good one?
You have to go to La Coreana.
La Coreana, okay.
Yes. That is a typical Maracaibo, typical food. Is where he born in Maracaibo, is a city in Venezuela. And you're gonna eat the best arepita de pernil. That is
like a pork chop.
It's like
pork arepa, something like that. But they are amazing. The best.
There you go. I love it. We have a maracucho. And where are you from, Vivian?
Caraqueña.
Caraqueña. Love it. Awesome, guys. Brad, any more questions for them?
No, not at all. I can't wait to see y'all Saturday night. I'll make sure I hit you up, Andy, and we'll get together again. And thank y'all so much for coming on the show. And we'll be seeing Jose get some more field goals.
Yes.
sir.
All right, guys. Take care, man.
I'm with it.
Now.
All right, y'all have a good night. I'll see y'all soon.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for the invitation.
Anytime. Bye. All right. That was the Borregales family. Very nice people. Man, they might have 2 future NFL kickers in their family. I mean, you can't teach that, man. That's all call it genetics, just pure talent, man. Whatever you want. I love it.
Yes.
And then in 30 minutes, we have John Micheals coming on. We can probably get him in earlier if he's available to.
Yeah, I just sent him a text.
Okay, cool. And then pending, we may have a special guest on the show that is pending. We'll find out. It may happen. It may not happen. If it doesn't, oh well, no big deal.
That's a big pending. That's like an overdraft fee in your account right there. If
I know, yeah. If we get this guest on, man, hey, hell of a show. It's always a great show, man. But this would be epic. I don't know how we would pull this one off.
So while we're waiting for John, Paul, give me some of your favorite memorable Miami FSU moments.
Wow, Brad. That's a big one. You know what? I'm going to talk about ones that don't get a lot of attention.
Okay.
Kirby Freeman's comeback drive against Florida State. Do you remember that one?
I do. That
Oh
was a nice one.
God.
That
we
was
were
good.
down the whole game. We were out of it. Last fourth quarter, Miami was down the whole game. I think it was Kirby Freeman, Kyle Wright just going back. That whole quarterback controversy. Yep. That was one hell of a moment. One of my favorite moments was a wide right game. I was there as a kid. I had a baseball game later on that day. I was going with my father and a friend of his as well. My father was like, look, you got a baseball game. It was in the Orange Bowl. It was hot and sunny. He was like, listen, just sit down. Like, you're going to get tired. You're not going to be ready for your game. And I was like trying to see. I was on my tippy toes the whole game. I was a little 6-7-year-old just trying to watch a college football game. And, man, it was down to the wire. Florida State was about to kick a field goal in the hot Orange Bowl sun in Little Havana. And I don't know. Someone said it was like, man, this is a chip shot. Like, they're going to make it. It seemed like Florida State was going to win the football game. Boom. Goes wide right. The rest.
2000.
Probably this one's a tie. Either the Ja'Cory Harris game. I think it was his debut game against Florida State. Could be wrong. Or his sophomore season. It was the opener of the college football year. It was one of the highest TV ratings of all time. Christian Ponder, last stand at the goal line. They throw the pass to the tight end, and it seemed like he caught it, but then he actually dropped the pass after the review. But one game was the Darrell Langham catch, man. I was in the Florida State student section, Brad. I didn't go to Florida State. I just befriended someone who was like, hey, man, like, where are you seating? I'm like, I'm in, like, I don't know, in the nosebleeds, and, buttfuck Egypt. And he's like, oh, no, come sit with me, dude. I'm in the student section. I'll get you in. I was like, okay, sure. I'm like behind the Florida State end zone, okay? And the Darrell Langham catch, man, I think that was the first time I publicly cried for like 5 seconds. And like I hugged the shit out of Miami Hurricanes fan right next to me. I didn't even know the guy. I just hugged them. We broke the streak.
Yeah, 2017 was amazing.
Fisher, Mark Rick's second year, man, we were undefeated. It was like the changing of the guards. It was Miami's time in the rivalry. I loved everything about it.
And that going back to 2017, man, it's starting to feel like I'm starting to get deja vu, Paul. We're starting to get back-to-back college game days where we're starting to get more up in the rankings. I mean, it seems like everybody on ESPN, ABC are starting to talk about the Hurricanes football team again in a good way. And I'm hoping, but my favorite moment's got to be I would probably have to say 2003, the rain game against Florida State when Sean Taylor just had probably one of the best games of his college career. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
but
the rain game,
yeah, 03, I believe, was the rain game. Hit between him and the Roscoe Parrish hit as well. I mean that
was a big one.
Yeah, so I would probably have to go with that one.
Brad, one thing, if we're going to compare this 27 undefeated team, listen, this team's a lot better, okay? Malik Rozier is nowhere near the quarterback Derek King is, okay? Our wide receiver core is much better at Miami, okay? I'm sorry. I know we've made a lot of mistakes, but the potential is there and the talent is much better. You mean to tell me Darrell Langham and Lawrence Cager as our top two receivers? Well, Braxton Berrios was our best, don't get me wrong. No, there's no receiver in this group that's better than Braxton Berrios. But after him, I'm sorry, we have a better, much talented wide receiver core.
We do.
The one we had in 2017.
We also, I think we're a more balanced team now. But you also got to remember the defense we had in 2017 to the defense we have now.
It was very good. It was very good.
I mean, we were pretty deep. I mean, you compare Michael Jackson to Al Blades. They're kind of cornerback one on the football team. Then after that, you had Bandy. We don't really have that CB2 that's kind of proven yet. The D-lines are kind of even. I would say the D-lines for both teams were very good. It seems like the D-tackle position in 2017 was a big factor in a lot of the turnovers we had. You look at this year, our D-tackles are starting to step up. Guys like Nesta Silvera is starting to become the Nesta we all wanted. You got a kid like Harrison Hunt as well. But, Wholesome one talks about coaching. You had Coach Cool in 2017, and you had Coach Simpson, I believe, right? Coach. Yeah, Coach Simpson, me personally, was probably one of our best D-line coaches we've had in a while. But Coach Stroud is also doing a good job.
100%. We got Shonda Roberts. Welcome back, Shonda. Appreciate
Shonda,
it.
what's up?
I love it, man. I think we're trying to develop that, player parent connection on this platform, on this YouTube channel. So look out for that as weeks go by. I think it's a nice perspective to hear from the parents and get an opportunity to talk about their son's experience at Miami and, just their experience overall, because they are a part of the University of Miami family.
Absolutely.
We all
Absolutely.
are. So.
And they're huge fans as well, just like us. So they have a very good perspective. I mean, they're able. I mean, they get the firsthand with their kids being in the program, but then they also get the same experience that we are seeing. You know what I mean? But I hope to have a couple more. I want to get Don Chaney's father on. I want to get Jafari Harvey's mom on. So we got a couple more. We could definitely get
talking about Bubba Bolden's mother as well.
Yeah, Bubba Bolden.
Reach out to her as well. So hey, Miami, Florida State week, man. I can't wait. I know, it kind of it hit me today. It's actually happening. There's something different in the air. Obviously, there's barely any fans in attendance. I better see 13,000 maxed out. Okay, I mean, we need to go out there and support, no doubt about it. Brad is driving down from Gainesville, Florida, all the way to Miami. If you live in Kendall, if you live in Doral, if you live in Pembroke Pines, Plantation, Florida, Palmetto Bay, Pinecrest, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, you got to be out there. If you live in Westchester, go to
Richmond Heights,
Perrine, Homestead. You got to be out there. Naranja, you got to go. You got to go.
This is the game. This is the game where you're going to see a lot of out-of-town Miami fans. I know there's plenty of fans that I follow on social media that are all traveling down for this game. You got our boy John Micheals, who's coming on in a little bit, flying down to Miami tomorrow. You got our boy Jay Kane, who's very popular on Twitter. He just got his ticket. He's flying down. I mean, you're gonna have people all over. This is the closest you're gonna get to a tailgate. Is this game on Saturday? I can't wait, man. It still doesn't feel real, honestly. I think it's only because this Florida State team just feels a little bit more depleted than normal. I mean, even their fans, it's like you can't even talk crap to the FSU fans because even they know they're not going to be good. So I just all I'm hoping for is more improvement. Win by at least 28 points, 21 points, but just we need to improve more on the offensive line. I want to see a little bit more better play calling, get some more of these receivers involved. I would love to see guys like Harley, Pope, Peyton, even a guy like D. Wiggins. D. Wiggins was probably our best target last year. He's been a little quiet. I expect a big game from a guy like D. Wiggins, and hopefully if we get Jeremiah Peyton back for this game, I expect big things from him as well because we are missing that number one receiver, and that's someone like Jeremiah Peyton that could fill that role.
Absolutely. Do you think D. Wiggins will be more involved in the game plan this week because we haven't seen a lot of him, and I feel like he's our best deep ball threat?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely do. And then on defense, I think all we need to do is key down on Tamarian Terry. I think Scary Terry is the one guy that if Florida State's going to have a chance to even be in this football game, that guy is going to have a huge game. I compare him similar to Tutu Atwell last week with Louisville. This is a kid that could easily go the distance off of one play. I think you hone in on Terry and you let the rest of Florida State's team try to score or somehow try to beat you. I think you just keep him out the football game, do whatever you can for him not to get the football, and this should be an easy victory for the Canes.
Love it. No, absolutely. I think we should go run heavy. To be honest, man, let's put the pressure on our run game. We're one of the best in the nation. Let's see if they can stop it. Cam Harris did a hell of a job the past 2 weeks.
And I want to see a lot of blitzes on defense. I want to see Blackman on the floor at least a couple of times first quarter. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, I think he will.
Me personally, I'm expecting 2 to 3 quarterbacks for Florida State on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see Chubba Purdy. It seems like he just got out of a sling. He broke his collarbone. I don't think he'll be ready to go. I think Jordan Travis we will see a lot of. I expect a quarterback change by the end of the first quarter. Brad, if Miami's in a dogfight in this game, and Miami, we win by 3, we win by 7. I mean, is that red flags for you? Is that are you upset? I would be upset personally. I felt like we were not prepared. This is a weak Florida State team. I know it's a win, but still, man, we got to dominate.
Hey, man, this is a rivalry game. When it all comes down to it, whatever you played before the week before, it all goes out the window. Whatever players did well the week before goes out the window. This is like no other. This is Miami, Florida State. Some players have never played that well in their life. This is the game where it all comes together, where they have their breakout moment. And if you look at it roster for roster, I mean, they all play together, man. These are all kids very familiar with each other all the way back to Pop Warner, like we talked about. Red flags, it depends on what position groups. If it's the same position groups that have been lacking the past 2 games, but the other position groups is what's helping us win, then I would say it's maybe a red flag, but I don't even see it happening, man. But it's a rivalry game. It's a rivalry game. You never know what to expect, but it shouldn't be close.
Brad, everybody and their mom, social media, Kirk Herbstreit, David Pollock, everyone's on Miami's bandwagon. Number 12 team in the nation, man. Are you believing in the hype, or is it still too early? I mean, De'Ara King is being compared to Russell Wilson. I mean, he was a Heisman contender.
So go ahead. I think I'm not believing in the hype yet. I wouldn't say we're back. I still think we have a lot to improve. I mean, we're talking a lot about Florida State right now, but right after Saturday ends, we have the best team in college football we have to prepare for. That is the game that's going to be the measuring stick for this University of Miami Hurricane football team. That is going to be the game that shows us how good Lashley is, how good King is, how good this offensive line can be. Whether or not some of the defensive players on the football team are going to make that next step. But I wouldn't say we're back yet. We are improving. I think we're light years compared to what we were last year. We have all the guys in place. Unfortunately, man, Miami, we're kind of stuck in this scenario where we really want us to do well. But if we do amazing like we all want to, we're talking about a guy like Rhett Lashley who's doing most of the work to get us back where we need to be. I don't see him staying here longer than a year or two if we get to where we want to be. That's going to be a hot commodity that's going to end up getting a head coaching job somewhere or end up going to the NFL like Mr. Brady. So we'll see, man. But I think we're still a little bit far off. I wouldn't say we're back, but we are definitely in the right direction.
Awesome. And without further ado, we have the legendary John Micheals all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. John,
my guy.
Friend.
Paul, Brad, what's up, my guys? Legendary. I'm far from that. I'm just ready to kick some Seminole ass. I don't know about you.
Yes, sir.
Saturday cannot get here fast enough. Matter of fact, tomorrow can't get here fast enough. You know, anybody that lives down there, and Paul, I know you're down there. Brad, you're in Central Florida, but you're heading down early Saturday morning.
Yes, sir.
I'm flying out at 2:00 tomorrow. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale about 4:30. Straight to Canesware, like literally out off the plane, pick up the rental car. I'm not even going to the hotel first. I got to go to Canesware and get stuff there. What a weekend! Yeah, I was on with Hockman and Crowder earlier today, and I told them, I said, man, I am so jealous of what's going on in South Florida. I mean, my heart and my affiliation and everything lies there. But you got the Heat tomorrow potentially going to the NBA Finals, and you have the University of Miami playing the Seminoles on Saturday. If you care, you know, you can watch the game tonight. Maybe we get to see Tua Tagovailoa, but what an awesome time to be a sports fan.
Yeah, man. And we talk about our Heat and a kid like Tyler Hero. That is one kid that is so young and has all the potential in the world. I mean, you could compare him to someone like Mr. Andy Borregales, who we just had on with the fam, who will be the kicker for the next 3 or 4 years after his brother leaves, man. But yeah, Tyler Hero, the way he carries himself, man, it's something different. It's fun to watch. I think he's definitely a walking bucket, and I'm interested to see how sports involves with Miami these next few weeks. I mean, if we're able to, obviously we're going to take care of business with Florida State. But that next week following against Clemson is going to be a telling story for this football team if we're in the right direction.
Yeah, I was trying to get tickets. Clemson's 85, 90 miles up the road from me. I mean, it's a real easy Saturday afternoon trip up there and back. But the only thing I can find right now is in the nosebleeds, like $400 a seat. I've been there once in 2005 when we beat them in triple overtime. It's an awesome place to watch football. Clemson wasn't Clemson back then. They were a ranked team. They were nowhere close. But this weekend, you know, take care of business. And I think, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into what we think about this weekend. But if we win this week, be prepared for 2 weeks of national media, just kissing our asses and how close are we to being back to national title contention and everything else. I'll be honest, I'm not ready for that yet. I am, because I want us to be back in national title contention.
Right.
But I'm not really ready for the conversation if we go up there and something goes wrong and, we find out that we're really a long ways away. I don't want the positivity of potentially 3 weeks to be damaged in one game. And that's one of the things I caution Miami fans with all the time. Nobody this year thought, hey, we're going to be an undefeated national champion. I picked 10-1. I just said we're not good enough to beat Clemson. Clemson's a whole different animal right now. But if we go 10-1, man, that Manny Diaz can start putting himself down for a statue in Coral Gables if he gets the program back on the right track.
John, me and Brad, before you came on, we were talking about the 2017 Miami Hurricanes, kind of comparing them a little bit, to this 2020 team. What are some differences that you see from that 2017 Hurricane program?
I always thought that year, the entire season, not that it was a fluke, because they were good. You don't beat Notre Dame's ass 41-8 and beat the hell out of Virginia Tech 28-10 and it'd be a fluke. But if you go back, and I was watching highlights of the 17 game, I forget, somebody had it up, posted on Twitter, the final drive when you beat Florida State in 17 to break the streak. And I was there. Me and my wife, my best friend, made the trip down from Atlanta, had a great time. And even thinking then, it was like, that offense every game was such a struggle. Malik would go 2 quarters where he couldn't hit the broadside of a ball. He couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. He looked like Jason Tatum in the first half last night is what he looked like. And then all of a sudden they'd have 1 or 2 magical drives and go score, and you go, fuck, we won the game. And that's all that mattered. And the defense was, bend, turnover, bend, turnover. And you go, man, maybe we are really, really good. And the team was. You don't win 10 games in the ACC and go 10-0 on a fluke. But you saw that the line was so thin. And as soon as guys started getting hurt, Amon Richards was hurt. Mark Walton went out that year. Chris Herndon towards the end of the year. When those guys were out, the depth was zero. And that's when you saw us lose the last 3 games. I think this year's team offensively is light years ahead of what the 2017 team was. Although I think the 2017 team was a head better on the defensive side of the football. You had defensive backs there, Michael Jackson, who was all over people. Trajan Bandy, Malik Young, those guys were all over people. And you had unbelievable leadership in Jaquan Johnson. Having Jaquan on the back end where he got everybody lined up right. He always came up with a bunch of new plays, all of that different stuff. So I think 17 at least was better, defensively. This year's team is way better offensively, and this year's team has way better special teams because Borregales, holy Jesus, he made some kicks last week, and Mondo, you guys may know Mondo. Armando Lakers came 305. He's up in Atlanta, so he came to my house, hung out with me for the game. And, they lined up for that 57-yard kick. I go, oh, God, this is a – and he kicks it. I go, holy shit, this dude just nails one. And, that's a difference. We won by 14 last week. He scores 12 points. Bubba Baxter would have taken him 6 kicks to make it as far as Borregales hit it. So, those are some of the differences I see between 17 and 20. I see this team, though, having a lot of the same confidence traits that 17 team did. That 17 team, when they started getting it rolling, they just were like, look, we're going to win football games.
Not only that, but we got the maturity, it seems like. Not only the maturity, but the coaching. The coaching is the one thing that sticks out the most to me compared to 2017 and 2020. You look at, we had Mark Rick and John Rick. Now we got Rhett Lashley and De'Aaron King. Those two alone are making a huge difference. We're catching lightning in a bottle, it seems like right now, very similar to what LSU did last year. But, yeah, the maturity in a lot of these positions that we were lacking before that now we're not. You mentioned a guy like Jaquan Johnson, who was the safety blanket for our defense. I know it's only week 2, but it's starting to seem like Bubba Bolden could kind of fill that role to be that next Jaquan Johnson for us. My thing is, who's going to fill in that role in linebackers? I think one of the position groups that I'm concerned about is linebackers. I know Zach McLeod, this is kind of like his year. This is his going away party. I'm expecting a big game from a guy like Zach McLeod on Saturday just because this could possibly be his last time playing against Florida State. I want to see a guy like him and what some of the younger guys like Sam Brooks, Avery Huff. This is kind of their first time getting to see the Florida State rivalry. This is what you committed to Miami for, is this game right here.
Yeah, part of that with the linebacker. I thought Zach played a much better game against Louisville than he did against UAB. And Louisville is such a different animal than what you're going to face. They're probably the second best offense you'll play all year behind Clemson. Clemson's going to be an NFL animal. And I think North Carolina is a step below, at least offensively, what Louisville is. For linebacker, I think part of it is they got to settle on a rotation. It seemed like every series this past week, one series Steed was in and Brooks was in, then Ragone's in. The next thing you know, McLeod's back in, Bradley Jennings is in. Figure out who the two guys are and then sprinkle everybody else in. And I don't think 2 weeks into it, they figured that out. I like what you said about Bubba Bolden. I thought the most telling part with Bubba this week is Bubba's a guy who was ACC Defensive Player of the Week, had a tremendous game, 11 tackles, bunch of tackles for loss, bunch of key tackles on third down. And the first thing he said, or the first thing he texted Manny Diaz is, "I'll play better this week." His coverage was off, gave up 5 completions in his zone for about 86 yards on 6 attempts towards him. He said he wants to play better. That's old school Miami, like new school Miami. And I'm talking about 2 years ago. A guy would have been Player of the Week. Oh, they'd have been on Instagram and look at this and showing money and talking to everybody else. Now all of a sudden you got a kid that wants to play better. He realizes last year he screwed up, because he jumps up and he celebrates and he ends up getting himself knocked out of the game, and you hated to see that. Bubba is that type kid. What they do at linebacker, I'm still confused with that. But those 8 or 9 guys they have in front of linebacker, holy cow, we got some depth and we got some animals right now getting after the passer.
Yes. John, first 2 games going into this season, we've seen a lot of great things from Miami, a lot of improvements, specifically quarterback play for me. Where would you like Miami to improve against Florida State and moving forward throughout this season?
It's execution on both sides of the ball. It's perfecting things. I'll use a quote from Remember the Titans. 20 years ago, one of the greatest movies ever come out. And Herman Boone in that movie, played by Denzel Washington, he literally says, "I expect perfection." We're going to run this till it's perfection. And I'll go back to, again, what Derek King said this week. We've got so much we can do better in the passing game. Think about the game against Louisville. Pope drops what would have been a huge play towards the end of the first half. You probably get more points. Mike Harley drops a wide open touchdown on the goal line, and you end up settling for 3. Against better teams, and Clemson and North Carolina and Virginia Tech, teams like that, you're going to have to nail those. And I sound like fucking Dan Quinn. You're going to have to nail them. Except Miami will know how to recover an onside kick as I take shots at my Falcons. But you look at those things, and those are things you have to learn how to nail in big games. You have to learn how to perfect, not jumping off sides, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 5, and you jump off sides and give somebody a free first down. Those are game changers. Those are drive extenders. So those are the things moving forward you've got to figure out. I'd like more consistency in the running game. The running game has been huge play, 1-1-2-1. And that's part of the offense that Rhett Lashley runs. He wants to set you up for a monster play. But I'd like to see him start rattling off on first down when everybody knows you're running inside zone. When you run inside zone, you get 5. We sit at 2nd and 5. Clemson can't stop us. We sit at 2nd and 9. All of a sudden, you start making guys have to make throws. So those are the things, that I'd look at that I'd love to see improve.
For sure. And, how exciting is it for us 2 weeks into football after going through this COVID season, not preparing for a whole offseason, getting a new quarterback, new offensive play caller, and we're talking about perfecting things already. Mm-hmm. That is something that we're not used to saying. And this just goes to show you what a guy like Rhett Lashley, what Derek King brings to this football team. And Miss T brings it up with the penalties. Week 1, we did well with penalties. Week 2, we didn't do good with penalties. So that's something that, like you said earlier, got to be consistent on.
Yeah, and I think part of that with the penalties, and shout out Miss T. I know her pretty well. Super cool lady. Cool as they come. One of the things with that is the better competition you play, you're more likely to make mistakes. The more tired you get, the more likely you are to make mistakes.
Very true.
You think about that defensively, and this is a good problem to have. We had the ball for 2 plays in the third quarter, and we scored 14 points and 150 yards offense. Well, that put our defense on the field for 10, 11, 12 minutes, basically in a row where, they had a kickoff, a timeout, a touchdown, a timeout, and they're right back on the field. You have those things, you make mental mistakes. You get physically tired. You can clean those up. And I love the fact that, again, they're not settling for, hey, we won the game. Think about last year. They beat Louisville, and Jaron Williams was out celebrating. The whole team was out. We're like, we've made it. And you're a 6-3 football team at that time, and you don't win another football game the rest of the year. I don't think this year the win against Louisville made anybody on the Miami team like basically celebrate anything. It was like, all right, we went up there and kicked their ass like we were supposed to. I like what David said. Ed Reed being on the sideline, you walk off, you're Bubba Bolden, you make a great tackle, and you look over and go, this guy is the greatest safety that's ever played the game of football. How can I celebrating tackling a guy for a 1-yard loss? I think accountability there becomes huge.
The best part – sorry, Brad, for interrupting. Seeing Ed Reed on the sideline and talking to the referee reminded me of that Michael Jordan video of when he was talking to the NBA referee saying, hey, like, did you see that foul on that play? Look out for number 7 from Louisville. Like, that's the kind of impact you have at the sidelines where a referee has to literally listen to you because the guy is a Hall of Fame NFL player, like one of the best to ever play. Like, you have to listen to that perspective.
Yeah, you do.
I was going to bring that up.
And the cool part about that, you go back and watch some of the great games of the 80s and even early 90s. You'd look on the sideline, it's Michael Irvin, it's Russell Maryland. It's the great players who would come at Melvin Bratton, Leon Searcy. They come back and they would instill wisdom into the kids. I get it. Ed Reed's it's different. He's actually on the staff, which is awesome to have that kind of wisdom sitting there. But Miami has always been about community and guys coming back. And that's where, new school fans or soft ass fans of other fan bases, oh, you guys are living in the past. No, our past is what helped shape our future for so long. Yeah. Our past was Michael Irvin calling Lamar Thomas in his dorm room going, bro, why'd you drop the ball on 2nd down? We haven't had that accountability in almost 2 decades. Ed has that. He brings that accountability. Manny making staff changes this offseason brought that accountability that pussy-ass Al Golden would never do. And you want to talk about a guy I cannot stand? That's one of the biggest cowards that's ever walked and been a head coach here in Miami. Mark Richt wouldn't do it because he's a Christian man and he didn't want to fire his family. Manny Diaz realized, and, say what you want, but, this is a guy that families, politicians, they're going to be cutthroat to a point. Manny looked and goes, I'm not losing me a $4 million a year job because this ass clown I hired at offensive coordinator can't get the job done. I'm here to tell you, if Blake Baker doesn't get the job done, Manny Diaz will cut bait, and that's the accountability that I'm loving.
I was just going to ask you that, John. So you have confidence in Manny that if the defense starts to struggle this year, that Blake Baker is one of those coaches that he would let go?
Absolutely. And I'll say this, the defense didn't play bad at all against UAB. They gave up 1 drive. They caused 11 punts. The first touchdown was short field that DJ Ivey just didn't turn his head around. I can't be mad at them at all. Last week against Louisville, you can see and say it last year, we struggled against Louisville. Louisville is a team that's got a really tough offense.
Very good offense.
They run the ball very well. They've got a dynamic quarterback in Malik Cunningham. Tutu Atwell should be a Miami Hurricane, but, that's a different story. And they've got athletes, and they've got speed, and Scott Satterfield can coach offense. I got a feeling this week Florida State has a hard time cracking 17, like legitimately. And if they don't score 17, we're going to whoop their ass by 3 touchdowns minimum because we're going to get up and down the field against them. Don't judge us based on giving up a bunch of yards to Louisville. Look at where the game – halftime we had given up 6 points. And college football right now to me is so different when it comes to what the expectations are. I think back in the 01 team, and I use them for an example, gave up 9 points a game and, 300 yards offense. Those days are gone. Everybody knows how to play offense except Florida State. And teams are going to put up 450, 500 yards. To me, I care about how many points we've given up and how many points we're winning by. We've covered the spread 2 straight weeks. Shout out to Bet Online. I've won $200, $100 each week on Miami. So I'm happy with that. We've covered the spread, and Lord knows I put another 100 on the game this week because I'm feeling confident about it. But I think if the defense really faltered, if they go back to giving up 28, 30 points a game, Manny will make a change. I'm not as upset at Blake Baker. You still have a lot of youth, a lot of new pieces. I think all of us maybe undersold losing Shaq and Michael Pinckney. That's a huge void when you had guys that had started, 4 years, 50 some odd games of experience. That is a lot to go up and do.
Yep. John, what going into this game, we're talking about the defense. Any key matchups you see with Florida State that to look out for Miami? I mean, Tamarion Terry, 2nd team All ACC, very good wide receiver for Florida State. cornerback play is a big concern at Miami, in my opinion. I feel that's one I'm going to be looking out for. Any matchups for you?
Yeah, Marvin Wilson's probably the best defensive lineman not playing for Clemson that will play all year. If he's motivated and he's ready to play, he's a guy that can give us trouble in the interior. You know, I still look at DJ Scaife and Corey Gaynor and Ja'Kai Clark and go, all right, what can you guys do against a true 300-plus pounder that's probably going to be a day 1 or day 2 pick in the NFL draft? He's got that kind of body. Asante Samuel Jr. is obviously a really good corner. I want to see how our receivers, go up and play. And, yeah, I'm betting on the spread. I only go spread. No, straight up, unless I get the money line's fine. But normally I go spread. How do our receivers fare against him? I think that's going to be a good matchup. I think they're going to get Nasruddin back in the secondary this week. He's coming off an ACL. Again, can we attack that? But the matchup to me, and I wrote about this on State of the U today, the matchup to me that I watch, and it's not a negative, is a positive. Our defensive line against that ragtag group that they have at offensive line. They're starting 3 sophomores or younger. Redshirt freshmen at center, two sophomores on the left and left guard and left tackle. They have 2 seniors on the right side, although the right tackle got hurt against Georgia Tech and had to come out. Miami should feast. We had 9 sacks and 16 tackles for loss a year ago against this team. If you can even do half of that, you get 4 or 5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss, James Blackman will hand us the football 2 or 3 times. He's nervous. He's skittish in the pocket. He's inaccurate with the football. So when I look at matchups, and I agree with Phil DeCane. Marvin Williams is not playing up to his potential. You know what Marvin Williams is doing? Marvin Wilson, he's looking. Now, Marvin Williams didn't play up to his potential either. But Marvin Wilson's looking and going, dude, this team sucks. My coach is a clown. I don't get along with him. I'm going to finish out this year and get to the NFL. But I think Miami's defensive line, Garrett Harrison Hunt, what the hell was that? Somebody dropped something in my house where there was a gunshot. I'm hope it was something was dropped and not a gunshot. That would be bad. Harrison Hunt should eat. Nesta should eat. Phillips should eat. Cam Williams should eat. These guys are going to feast on Florida State, and I think that's the matchup that flat out gets Florida State's ass beat.
Not only that, I think if we start out early and put everything that we need first quarter, be up by like 14, 20 points already. Right. This is a FSU team that is going to be depleted. I mean, you talk about a locker room and a team that's already in shambles. I mean, their head coach is going to be Wally, for God's sakes, this game. So, I mean, I don't see how this team gets up and ready for this game. I mean, it doesn't even feel like a rivalry game. The fans for Florida State aren't even in it. They know they're about to get smacked.
Yeah, it's different. It feels like last year. Last year, even going down there, and I got to Tallahassee, and it was just like, it's a football game. And I've been lucky enough to go to 14 or 15 of the last 20 Miami Florida State games. Like I really made it a point back in 2000 when I finally had enough disposable income to make it up and down that I was going to this game every year. It felt different last year. It feels now like Florida State, they've got some fans that have the false bravado and, you haven't won an ACC title. I don't care. We're going to whoop your ass for the 4th time in a row. And I remember that feeling as a Miami fan from the other side, trying to talk myself into, we can win this game. We can beat Florida State. In the back of my mind, knowing we're going to get run off the field. And I think that's where a lot of their guys are. Now, the players themselves, they still have talent. Florida State's got 36 or 37 4 and 5 stars on their roster, which is like 1 less than what we have. So they have talent. The problem is it's a collection of individual talent. It's not a collection of, hey, we've got 22 guys on the field that are going to come play as a cohesive team. You've got a lot of guys, and it started in 17 with Jimbo Fisher, that are going, I'm going to get mine, and I'm getting out of here. And think about it. Miami's gone through that now for, outside of 17, probably 10 years plus, where we might have 4 or 5 NFL guys, and those guys are going, whatever. If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. And, I think Florida State's a team, and you guys have hit spot on with this. If you go put up, if it's 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, it's going to be 52-7.
Absolutely.
If it's close, if they've got a 7-3 lead, we're going to be in for a dogfight for a while. But I got a feeling Rhett Lashley, if I'm Manny Diaz, give me the ball. Give me the ball first. Let me go up 7-0 on these clowns and make them play from behind.
We finally got a coordinator that will do it. You know what I mean? We have a coordinator who's not afraid to put the gas on the pedal, and I love that.
This is a statement game for Manny Diaz, in my opinion. This is year 2 of Coach Manny Diaz. This is the changing of the guards game. You have to run up the score if given the opportunity to tell Mike Norvell, welcome to the state of Florida. This is the new Miami. All right, we're going to steal your recruits. We're going to kick your effing ass, okay? And then we're going to take care of business against Florida. So you have to kick Florida State's ass in this football game. No doubt about it. It shouldn't be a dogfight through 4 quarters, in my opinion. Florida State is a broken program. You have the elite quarterback. You have the elite running backs. You have the elite OC, the elite tight ends. There's no reason we should be in a dogfight with Florida State going through 4 quarters. If that is the issue, in my opinion, Manny Diaz failed to prepare this football team against Florida State. This is a statement game, in my opinion.
Paul, I also think the players, there's such a leadership ability right now with De'Aaron King. De'Aaron King's not going to go, oh, great, we won 17-10. He knows, let's go kick their ass. Like, literally, let's do what we need to do. You talk about changing of the guard. I think it was Jimbo's second year. It may have even been his first year. And they played, it was one of Randy Shannon's last years, and they came down to Miami and won 41-14. I think it was 2010. They went 41-4. And all of a sudden you realize, like, man, Florida State's got a lot of talent. And Miami can't match that talent right now. And, we haven't really put it to that place yet. And this rivalry, you can go back over the last 40 years. There's been very few blowouts, like very few. I think in 84, they beat us pretty handily. 85, we caught them pretty good. 86, I know we beat them 41-23, somewhere in there. And then all of a sudden you look from 86 to like 97 and every game was competitive. They beat us in 95 on probation, 41-17. They beat us obviously 47-0 against up in Tallahassee in 97. But then we paid them back in 01. And then everything for that was close again. And then they've had a couple of blowouts. We haven't blown them out in a long time. It's time to put our foot on their stupid ass throats and run them out of here.
Yes, I agree, man. And I mean, when is the last time we have been? I mean, any Hurricane fan. I mean, every time we play this team, we're able to easily rattle off 5 to 10 names, or we know the starting running back and the backup running back. You can't answer any of those questions now. There's not more than 5 guys you can name on this football team. Nobody knows what the running back's name is or what number he wears. We're not going against a Cam Akers. We're not going against a Dalvin Cook. We're not having a Jimbo on the other side. We're not having a Jameis Winston squinting on the other side. We're not playing the same Florida State team that we're used to seeing, and I'm expecting a blowout.
It's funny you say that, Brad, because I try to pride myself on knowing all the players, and I think in our group text we were kind of going back and forth. Normally I have 8 preseason magazines, and I read them all when I'm on the crapper or whatever it may be to really get myself updated on other teams that we're going to play, because I talk a ton of college football on our radio show here. And, I look at Florida State. There's no reason to talk about them outside of us playing them because they're not good. I watched that game against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a team that's 2 years removed from running the option. They're starting a true freshman quarterback, a true freshman running back. You've just now got some size on the offensive line to look like an ACC offensive lineman. Jeff Collins, who I know pretty well. Jeff's a tremendous guy and coacher and everything else, but he's built the program. I watched that game. They were the better team than Florida State. There was nothing fluky about it. It wasn't an onside kick. It wasn't a fumble. They were better. They had 2 turnovers that kept that game from being a 2 or 3 score game against FSU. We're head and shoulders better than where we were a year ago, and we're a hell of a lot better than Georgia Tech. I know Nasruddin only because he's been there for a few years and he's coming off injury. Kando, who may not even play this week. I know his name. Obviously know Marvin Wilson is a huge name there. Asante Samuel Jr. because we recruited him, and James Blackman because he's been there 50 years. I know Tabari Terry because he's the one true monster on their team, although he hadn't done crap against us in the couple of years that we played against. I literally don't know who their running back is. I'm not exaggerating. If their running back came in here and sat next to me right now, I would not know who he is. I don't know his name.
It would be Manti Te'o's girlfriend, right?
Right, exactly. I think you would rather see Manti Te'o's girlfriend than running back.
God damn. By the way, guys, Pac-12, I guess I haven't checked it, but they will be playing college football. So I think that's a great sign overall that everyone is coming together to play college football. How does that work out with the rankings? I mean, we're going to have the ACC already 6 games in. I feel like we're going to have then the Big Ten playing, Pac-12 joining. I mean, it's going to be a mess when it comes out for the playoff committee.
They're going to change some rankings a little bit, but I also do think that now that the SEC is in play this weekend, I think a lot of fans, especially Hurricane fans and fans around the world, are going to start to realize that, hey, this is week 1 football for SEC. Right. Not all these SEC teams that we're expecting to do big things are going to look like those teams first week, and then they're going to kind of take a step back and be like, you know what, maybe Miami isn't such a bad football team.
It's ridiculous that there's 6 SEC teams ranked in the top 10. It's fucking ridiculous. And they do this every single year. Texas, why is Texas A&M a top 10 team? What is Jimbo? I get it. Kellen Mond's been there 50 years. Who would they be? They played 5 good teams last year and went 0-5 against them. 5 good teams, 0-5. Why are they ranked top 10? This year's going to be so different from the SEC perspective. And I know we'll get off topic here for a second, but think about it. They play 10 games against themselves. That's it. They don't get to load up on Middle Tennessee State. They don't get to load up in November and play the Citadel. You know, they don't get to prop themselves up and be 5-0 against the Sisters of the Poor. They play each other. They're going to cannibalize each other. I would argue right now, Alabama's going to be a top 10 team. They're probably going to make the college football playoffs. Florida's going to lose 2 games. Mark it down. They will lose at least 2 games this year. LSU lost 17 starters and 2 coordinators. Good luck with that. Georgia still to today has not announced who the quarterback's going to be. It's either going to be a redshirt freshman and DeJuan Mathis, who came off serious surgery, or JT Daniels, who tore his ACL a year ago. To go to the question about the Pac-12, they're talking about starting November 6th. They're going to play 7 straight weeks, and that's it. This goes to 2 conferences that jumped the gun. And I get it, COVID's serious, and I'm not going to knock all of that. They could have been patient 2 months ago, and they could have been playing football this week, just like the SEC is. Some of the Pac-12 schools have not worked out at all because California would not allow them to do any kind of workouts. So you're going to now try to get kids ready, play football November 1st, play 7 weeks, and then try to argue your team should be in the college football playoffs. Pac-12, you're doing a participation trophy. You can play in the Rose Bowl. That's fine. Send Oregon. Maybe Oregon calls all the kids that opted out and have them come back in and play. The argument to me, Paul, that's going to be interesting will be the Big Ten. If Ohio State is 9-0, they're in the playoffs. Yeah. But what happens if Ohio State's 8-1 and Georgia's 10-1? Who gets into the playoff? Because Georgia's going to have 2 more data points that the Big Ten doesn't have. Those 2 conferences screwed themselves, and what they ended up doing now is realizing if we play in the spring, nobody gives a shit. Nobody. You know, you're at the the FCS level, the championship level. Fine, right. Go in the spring and play for a national title. Any of these other schools would have played in the spring, it would have been like watching the XFL. Nobody would have cared. Now they're going to scramble. I think Bill Hancock and the executive committee for the NCAA or for the college football playoffs, it's going to be a very big argument. But let's be honest, that's what they want. They want December 1st for us all to be going, oh, awesome. Oh, who should be in? Who should be out? They want that argument. It's ready-made TV. They do that stupid BCS, college football playoff ranking show, all of that stuff.
I think the key, too, as well is, I mean, this is a special year. This is different from most. I think the key is going to be is how many games have you played in a season? Right. I think we're already starting to see there's so many games getting canceled, whether it's South Florida and Notre Dame. And, you know, I think it's going to go based off how many games have you played. And now not only are you having to worry about the actual injury bug, but now you're having to worry about the COVID bug. How many of your guys are going to be out on a week-to-week basis? Exactly. So when it comes down to decision time, it's going to be a lot easier to say, you know what, that 10-0 or 10-1 Ohio State team or 8-1, if Justin Fields has COVID by then or is hurt by then, right, they're going to be a lot easier to say, you know what, they don't need to make the Big Four. They don't have a guy that's going to be ready for national television that's going to have all the eyes on him.
It's going to be so interesting as this continues to play out. And obviously the flu season comes when people are going to get sick anyway. It's just natural that happens. How many of those tests become COVID tests, false tests? You know, I have my own theories on a lot of this, and I don't like to get political, so I'm going to leave that portion alone. You know, South Florida had no positives on Saturday, none on Monday, yet they're not going to play because of contact tracing. The contact tracing to me, if you're testing negative, you got to let these kids continue to play. And I get the precautions that they continue to take. But think about the advantage in the ACC right now. Virginia Tech hasn't played. Virginia hasn't played. They're both going to get in action this week for the first time. So now the weeks that they would have had normal buys, they're going to have to play. You start looking in the back end of the season, if you've played 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row against quality competition, Miami has an advantage. Clemson hasn't. We've already played 2 games. We're going to get a bye week after Florida State to get ready for Clemson. We'll have a bye week again later on in the year. Those are the little things that become advantages somewhere down the road. You know, Notre Dame's now going to have to play, I guess it's Wake Forest on December 12th is when they move the game. What if that ends up being a week that if they win, they go to the ACC championship game and Ian Book ends up coming down with COVID? There's no way that they can move the game. The advantage is the teams that stay healthy. You know, Miami had a couple of cases. Thank goodness it was only a couple. They weren't guys that, you know, I would have loved to seen Jeremiah Payton last week, but they weren't guys that hurt us. They weren't guys that wrecked our depth. You know, God forbid something happens to one of our starters, one of our main starters, and they're not there. And that's the navigation. Again, the Big Ten going to try to jam 9 weeks and 9 games in 9 weeks. That is a lot to ask out of college kids to not only do that, but stay away from all their friends.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting lucky with the COVID bug right now. We're also getting lucky with the injury bug. This is, I mean, the injuries, especially coming off of spring season, is something that's hurt Miami every single year. There's always those 2 or 3 guys that we had expectations for to be that starting position in a role, and they end up out for the year, out for 6 to 8 months coming after spring. And this is the first time where everyone on this football team is healthy, whether it be physically, COVID, mentally, everything just seems like to all be in the right place. And I mean, John, you mentioned it just a second ago with having a week off before to get ready for Clemson. I mean, the 2 biggest questions for us Hurricane fans is going to be, 1, are we ready for Clemson? And 2, how will we do coming off of a bye? We know in years prior, especially last year, coming off of a week of a bye was the thing that hurt us the most. Now we finally have the coaching. Let's see what Rhett Lashley and this team can do coming off of a bye.
I may have said it on my own podcast, State of Miami. I really liked how the schedule set up early this year, because you go to Louisville and you win. And let's be real, you know, people are blowing us up. You saw E.J. Manuel and all the national media, Dennis Dodd, is Miami back? And in years past, we would have had that game and we would have followed it up against Duke. And then all of a sudden you play Duke and it's complete letdown. The way this schedule sets up early, so you have the big win at Louisville, but now you can't. Monday morning, they're playing the war chant in Coral Gables on Green Tree. You hear that stupid, that nonsense. The guys knew right then. I guarantee Ed Reed walks in and pops in an old VHS tape or whatever and says, "Well, watch what this rivalry means if you don't know." So the team immediately refocuses. So you go to a bye, and think about it. I'm trying to think of the games we lost after a bye last week. Last year, we lose to North Carolina, who was new coach, freshman quarterback. You probably didn't take them all that serious coming off the Florida loss. Maybe it was FIU, and again, I think that goes back to the Louisville game. Everybody got brought up, and we're going to blow out FIU, and they didn't take care of business. Obviously, the bowl game, they just completely sucked. You come off the bye week, you're looking at the number 1 team in the country. If that doesn't get your juices flowing, you shouldn't be playing college football. Right. So you could feel great. Hell, you might even get 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if you take care of Florida State. Feel good about it. We're going to be a top 10 team at that point. A lot of the country is going to start talking about us, and then Manny Diaz can go play the number 1 team in the country. They've collectively beat us. What is it now? 96-3. The last 2 times that we've played them. Go ahead and put in the 15 game in the ACC championship game and go, that's what that team has done to you. There's no reason for a letdown. And yeah, you're right. I think anybody that says it, you're right. You got to be focused coming out after a bye. And Wayne, I agree. We got to kick Florida State's ass first. But if you can get through that, you have a target 2 weeks from there and really find out where you stand in the grand scheme of college football. Go up there and get blown out 46-3. Fuck that. We ain't back. Go up there and lose 38-35 or somehow win it 31-28 or whatever. You can look and go, all right, now Miami's really back. That's when you know when you compete against those teams, you're back. I saw a stat last week that I had to look at 3 times. We were like 3-34 against ranked teams on the road since 2005 going into last week's game. I know I'm a little older than you guys. I'm probably a lot older than both of you guys. I remember a point in the 80s where Miami won 7 straight games against the number 1 team in the country. When the other team was number 1, we won 7 in a row. How far removed are we from there when we're 3-34 and our only wins against ranked teams were the kick return game against Duke, the 09 game against Florida State, and the bowl game against West Virginia? Now you can add Louisville into that game. Let's get back to the trend where we go beat teams that are equal or greater talent that we have.
Yes. John, from the past, let's see, 15 years, I'd say to the Brock Berlin era, how do you compare this team compared to others? I know we're early in the season. The identity still hasn't even been, set up. But do you see any comparison, any similarities, or is this a better team than we've seen the past decade?
I mean, for the past decade, the only team it's comparable to is 17. 17 is the only time that we had a good team. And I think this year's team, and again, it's early, it's only 2 games. I think we have potential to be a really good finish the year in a high-quality bowl game type team. Again, not national title good, but I think we can be good enough to be in the ACC title game and have a chance from there. You go back from there, 2013, we started 7-0. Everybody on the planet knew it was a fraud. Every single person on the planet knew it was a fraud. And then when Duke Johnson got hurt, the season was over. It went downhill. Yep. You go back from 13, I think it was 2009, we started 3-1. We beat 3 ranked teams out of 4 weeks. And then that was the year that Ja'Cory Harris threw a bunch of interceptions late in the season. That was a really, really good football team. Unfortunately, once Ja'Cory started throwing picks, it went downhill. Then you have to go all the way back to 2005. They were great defensively in 05. They just were horrible on offense with Kyle Wright and Larry Coker. And then you have to go back before that. So, we've only had a handful of good teams. I think we're better than the 09 team. I think we're definitely better than the 13 team. The jury's still out on 17. And 05 probably would have beat us because their defense was so good. It was just a different era, the way that we were running offense in college football then. But this team, Paul, has potential to be better than all of them. No, it's not 01. It's not 02. Hell, it's not even 03. 03 should have been in the national title game as well. Yeah, they have potential to be pretty damn good this year.
It starts with the quarterback position, man. De'Ara King, that's the difference maker, in my opinion.
It's absolutely the difference. We have not had that guy. Think about 2 games, 2 completely different game plans. Game 1, they realized we could run the ball over UAB the whole game, and they did. And we threw it, 16, 20 times, less than that. Louisville started the game, and I told Mondo, I said, if they rush 3 the entire game, De'Ara King's going to have a field day. And on 2 huge third downs, they rushed 3 and dropped 8, and King's looking, surveys the field. Somebody's eventually going to get wide open, and then they were wide open. And then Louisville starts to try to come up, and they went 0 coverage 20 times with no safety on the field, and then we start hitting the shot plays. It's pick your poison. Having a mature senior who has something to prove and wants to win and is demanding the best out of his guys. We haven't had that since Ken Dorsey.
The offensive coordinator position and the quarterback position are 2 key positions that Miami fans have questioned the decision-making in almost every football game, it seems like, until this year. And I mean, we're not even 8 months removed from last season, and we are questioning our defense and not our offense. And that is a great sign to know. The fact that we seem like more of an Oklahoma type of football team now. Like we're not worried about if we're going to be able to keep up with teams on the offensive side. Right. Now it's are we able to stop them on their offense?
That's a great point.
I was going to say the difference with us in Oklahoma, I think we have the ability to stop teams. Oklahoma hasn't had the ability to stop teams.
Yes.
We're not going to be in 55-45 shootouts every week.
Right.
Louisville, some of those points were garbage time points. It was 40-20 in the fourth quarter, and I think we got lax, and they started playing some younger kids, and we did give up a couple of late touchdown drives, but the game was never in doubt. Oklahoma will be in a 55-45 against Kansas, and you go, how the hell are you losing to them in the fourth quarter? We do have the ability. You talk about 8 months ago. Think about where we were in Shreveport, whatever the hell that bowl game is, the Independence Bowl.
Only
we were in
0 points.
I went to college 90 miles from Shreveport. Shreveport is a shithole. Sorry if you live in Shreveport and you're a Miami fan. It is an awful, awful place. Like, it's not a place that I want to send my kids for Christmas to go play in a bowl. We scored 0. We could not have looked more inept on offense than that game. It's the most inept I have ever seen a Miami team. Most inept ever. And then all of a sudden you turn around 8 months later and our offense looks like we're driving a Maserati. It is really, really awesome to see. I said before the year, if we average 35 a game, we're going to be in it for we're going to be in every game, and we're probably going to be a 10-1 football team. We're averaging over 35 points a game right now, and it's only going to get higher this weekend. I got a feeling we can go out and put a big number.
Oh man, I hope so.
What do you say to the fans that are worried or skeptical of our defense allowing in like the high 20s, high 30s in certain games? Because me personally, I kind of steer fans in the direction of looking at LSU last year.
Mm-hmm.
LSU had 5 or 6 games where the opponent scored over 35 points, but they still won the football game. And I think we look at this football team, we kind of bring up the Oklahoma scenario, but with a better defense. These are scenarios and types where we talked about earlier how this offense is going to be able to score in 1 or 2 plays to where our defense is going to have to be on the field more, but in good scenarios and not bad. Where this is going to happen eventually where we might get in a shootout, but we should win the shootout this time.
I love the comparison. They gave up 35 to Texas and won the game late on a Joe Burrow throw. I think they gave up over 40 to Ole Miss, who marched up and down the field. Florida moved the ball at will against them in the game. The Alabama game was, 48-41 or 49-41. That's the new era of college football.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to – thank God we don't have to watch any more than 9-6 Alabama LSU games. Those were brutal. Unbelievable defense, but it was like, okay, let's run into a brick wall 500 times, and hopefully we come up with something. It took Miami a decade to realize we can't keep playing that way. The only reason our defense gave up as many yards and points as they did a week ago, they were on the field 38, 39 minutes because we were scoring so damn fast. I'm not mad at that. Tell me what points per game are at the end of the year. If we're giving up 25 or less, I think that is very solid defensively. We're no longer going to be a 10-point a game defense. There's very few of them in the country, if any. We're going to give up points. Hell, I hate to make a comparison to Ohio State, but for how long with Urban Meyer were they winning games 45-28, 45-35? Ryan Day did a good job a year ago. We have NFL talent on defense. Bubba Bolden's an NFL player, no doubt. Al Burks is going to be in the NFL. Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, Nesta Silver. These are NFL players. Eventually, talent will rise to the top, and they're going to make some plays. And I think it's just a matter of time before the defense clicks. Think how many times we've been really, really close on pressures on the quarterback. And Jalen Phillips, I think he's second in the ACC in pressures so far. He's going to start getting the QB to the ground. You start putting pressure on a quarterback, you get a QB to the ground. All of a sudden, that turns into turnovers, and you're going to win a lot of games.
He's definitely leading college football and holds for sure.
Oh, yeah. And dirty shots below the leg, too.
For sure.
I hate to bring this question up, but it's been a hot topic. We're 2 games in. I genuinely hate to bring it up, man. But, University of Miami administration, their athletic program, Rhett Lashley, he's going to be a hot name. This upcoming season, the offseason. Is there any way we can pull off like a Brett Venables, that Clemson mindset to keep your coordinators for as long as you can? Is there money funded in the program enough to pay out your OC? And I want John to answer that because he's been watching games, he's been speaking to people part of the program. You would know best about that matter. I feel like. Is
the money there? Yes. Don't let people lie to you that Miami's a poor program. They choose what to spend it on. They choose who they want to buy out and who they don't want to buy out. The money's there. The problem is it's the want. Brent Venables doesn't want to be a head coach. If Brent Venables wanted a job, he'd already have a job. He's been offered a bunch of times. He likes it there. They had co-offensive coordinators forever with Tony Scott, or it was Jeff Scott and Tony Franklin, I think, were the 2 offensive coordinators. And Scott finally left after like 10 years to take a job. Sometimes there's just guys that don't want to leave. Now, if Rhett Lashley wants to stay in OC, awesome. He's sort of been a gypsy already. He was at Auburn for a while. He didn't like being up underneath Gus Malzahn. So he branched out on his own, went to UConn, went to SMU, now to Miami. He's obviously building the brand. Think about it. Manny Diaz did the same thing. DC here, there, the other, had to take a step back after getting fired at Texas, went to La Tech, went to Mississippi State, built the brand back, and eventually got the head coach. If Rhett Lashlee wants to be a head coach, he will. Here's my hope, and it's a little morbid to say this, but with COVID, I don't think we see as many coaching changes this offseason as you normally would. Programs have lost millions of dollars. Millions. It's going to be a really hard sell as a college athletic director right now to say, hey, we cut women's lacrosse and men's volleyball and baseball and everything else, yet I'm going to pay a $5 million buyout to get somebody gone and bring somebody else in.
That is true.
Lower level, you got to remember the lower level schools, and I know the Mountain West and the MAC are now talking about playing some type of fall schedule as well, but these lower level schools have lost out on all their big money payout games. You know, you're not going to Alabama and getting a $2 million paycheck to get your ass kicked. How do you now have money to turn around and pay a coach? So I think Rhett Lashlee, we might get 2 years out of him. If he really has this offense, 40 points a game this year, and then next year with TVD or Kosi or whoever ends up being the starting quarterback, another great offense, then he probably looks to go take another job. That's where it becomes so important right now. Whoever is below him needs to absorb this offense. Whoever below him needs to take this and say, we're going to keep this type of system to move forward. How about my boy Steve Field? Steve's an unbelievable – I went to high school with him. He was a freshman when I was Me and him had the same mass media class. Our first period class my senior year when I ever made it there. Steve was a freshman, and we knew day one – and he ended up playing, I think, at Virginia and did a really good job there. We knew day one Steve was going to be a monster. He was a big-ass kid as a freshman. And we used to sit and joke, and we both loved Miami. Him and I did the school newscast. Now, I knew at that time I wasn't good enough to play in the NFL. I had, NAIA and D2 scholarship offers, which wasn't much. He knew that he was going to be pretty good and go on to major college football. But he's the type of guy I look at, or maybe a Rob Likens, maybe a Garen Justice, who I believe called plays before anyway. Those are the kind of guys that you're going to need to groom. The best programs, to kind of answer the question, Clemson's an anomaly, keeping their guys forever. The best programs go from Bob Stoops to Lincoln Riley. The best programs go from whatever, Alabama's been able to change coordinator like underwear. You go and find the next guy that stays with this same system. And I'd like to find somebody in-house that wants to take that next step from coordinator or position coach up to coordinator. And maybe that's how you keep up, with somebody like Rhett Lashlee. But he's going to leave. I mean, it's inevitable he's going to leave.
And let's not forget, if Lashlee leaves, it's because he's doing something right with the program. And by then, it's we could have another offensive coordinator that we're not talking about right now that would love to be at Miami because of what Lashlee did for the program.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's very similar to the quarterback position. People are frustrated and worried about, hey, we don't have a quarterback in this recruiting class. If we keep doing what we're doing, De'Aaron King could possibly come back. We could get the number one transfer quarterback again in the portal the following year. There's no telling, what could happen.
Yeah, or Van Dyke can end up being great, or Jake Garcia changes his mind. And boy, it's really interesting because apparently the state of Georgia is now talking about his eligibility, which the state of Georgia is kind of crooked anyway. But, it is what it is. Really good high school football played down there in Valdosta. You're absolutely right. You start winning, and just say King finishes third in the Heisman this year. You think the next quarterback that is mobile and can run this kind of offense and go, oh, crap, I want to be at Miami. And that's to go back to the iron sharpening iron. You win, recruits come. Recruits come, you start winning at a higher level. All of a sudden, that train keeps going down the track, and that could be the same thing with the coaching staff. Blake Baker, if you have a good season this year, Blake Baker can go on to something better. And now you go out and you move somebody else in as well.
Absolutely. You wrap up the show with this. Go ahead,
John. Before we let you go, man, what is your score prediction? Miami, Florida State, Saturday night, primetime television, the greatest rivalry in college football sports, hands down.
I hope, I'll be honest, I hope we beat them 48-7. I don't think it's going to be that kind of game. Maybe it's the old school rivalry guy in me. I put 31-17 on State of the U. Florida State's going to give us some problems defensively, although Rhett Lashley last year against this same DC put up 48 points with SMU against Memphis. So he's had success attacking this defense. Florida State's going to be amped up. They've had a bye. They've been told for 2 weeks how much they suck. Their coach is dealing with COVID, so they're having some issues there. You have guys that are opting out of the program, but they're going to look at this as their Super Bowl. They're going to say, we can change our program if we go win this game. And I use the analogy of the old Al Golden teams. You know, you think about Al Golden and all those years that we were so bad and we would play tooth and nail against FSU. My 40th birthday was 2014 when we were up 26-9 or whatever it was, 23-7 at one point. Clive Walford had a huge touchdown against them. Miami had no business being in that game, but they came out like a Super Bowl. I think Florida State does that for a half, and then eventually they're exhausted. That offense is going to wear on their defense. Like I said, 31-17. I hope we win by more than that. We'll cover the spread. We're going to be happy. And the Florida State fans are going to go, you beat the worst FSU team ever. Well, guess what? Go back over history, you idiots, and go look. Your best team, we beat your best teams. When we were both great, we won all the matchups. Florida State beats us when they were good and we weren't good. We always beat them when we were equal or better, and it's going to happen again this week. It'll be 4 in a row for the U. Brad, I can't wait. What time are you getting down there? I got to ask you, what time are you getting there?
I should be there around 11:30 noon on Saturday.
I don't want to say screwed because I'm going down with a good friend of mine who lives in Palm Beach. I fly in Friday. I'm going to meet up with the guys from Stadium Drive podcast and some of the other people. We're going to go out and probably watch the Heat game. My buddy books a 9 a.m. tee time in Palm Beach golf on Saturday morning.
You won't be done till at least 1, right?
Probably 2 because I'm horrible. But although I'm not looking for a single ball, if it goes in the woods, I'm done. Then I'm meeting Mark Hochman for lunch. The good thing is, like, with no tailgate, I really can't get to the game till about 6 o'clock anyway. I think my ticket time, that's when the earliest I'm allowed to go into the stadium.
Right?
Oh, it's 6:40. So I'm going to try to meet up with you. Once I finish lunch with Hawk, we'll head down that way. We got to find a place to start getting some drinks in and take an Uber over to the stadium. I got to be good and buzzed by the time I get in there.
I'm down.
It's going to be really weird. You know, I'm excited to go to the game, but I'm used to being there at 4 o'clock for an 8 o'clock game, tailgating with all the Miami fans, having a great time. I am happy that we get to go. Can't wait to see you guys. Great job with everything that you're doing. Much success with the YouTube channel and the podcast and everything else. Let's go beat some Florida State ass. I cannot wait.
Let's do it, John. Tito's and Red Bull real soon, bro.
Absolutely. Maybe some fireball shots as well.
John Micheals, everyone. State of Miami podcast. It's always a pleasure, John, and hope you have a wonderful and blessed night.
All right. I'll see you guys this weekend. Thanks.
All right, fellas.
All right, guys. That was John Micheals, State of Miami podcast. It was a pleasure to have all of our guests on tonight's show. And, man, what a great show. Brad, anything else you got for 154 people on with us right now?
Let's go beat some Seminoles ass, man. I can't wait. Man. We're gonna dominate like Joaquin says. We're gonna dominate, and that's exactly what we're gonna do come Saturday. Bring out the turnover purse, whatever you want. It's not happening.
I love it, man. Hey, let's make it 4 in a row Saturday night. Hope everyone has a safe and blessed night, and always all about the U.
It's all about